to call the meeting to order this evening, March 6th, 2017, 5 p.m. Opening, please.
Let the minutes reflect that adequate notice of the holding of this special meeting of the Howell Township Council was provided for in the following manner. By the posting of a copy of said notice upon the bulletin board in the Township Municipal Building on February 24, 2017. By the faxing of a copy of said notice to the Tri-Town News, Asbury Park Press, and Star Ledger for information and publication on February 24, 2017. By the filing of a copy of said form of notice in the Township Clerk's office on February 24, 2017. The public will be allowed to attend and will be allowed to participate pursuant to the Open Public Meetings Law. The public is reminded that civility and decorum will be maintained during the meeting. Any contracts awarded at this meeting or between now and the next meeting will be required to comply with the requirements of Public Law 1975, Chapter 127, NJAC 17:27. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code, please be advised that this facility is designed with emergency exits for your safety. The locations are as follows. Upon exiting the meeting room, they are to your left and to the right. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Television. Also, no food or beverage is permitted in this room. Roll call, Mrs. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mrs. Smith?
Present.
Mr. Walsh?
Who will be joining us?
Mr. Nacastro?
Here.
Mayor Berger?
Present. I'd like to please stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Rob?
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we, any discussion?
We can get right into the budget portion if you'd like.
Okay.
If Senior Center, Mr. Decker, come on up.
Senior Services starts on page 177 in the budget booklet. And on the J sheets, it is J18, J18.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay. My budget's pretty straightforward. We had a few changes this year. I did ask for an allowance for in uniforms just to meet contractual obligations. There was a big jump as well in line item 308, Buildings and Grounds. We don't have a sign for our building ever since it got re-sided in 2015. So I did have somebody come out to give an estimate for a new sign over the top of the building. So it was about $4,500. First aid supplies, I did lower because we had quite a bit left over. And we use that besides for the first aid supplies, but also for Lifeline that we pay for certain members that need it. But we had almost, I think, 1,400 left over in that, so I lowered that by 1,000. Some of the others I did lower, like program supplies, special events, I lowered just because they can be taken out of other line items depending on what they are. The professionals, I increased because we're going to be having the classes a little bit longer throughout the year. We're looking to add a dance class as well as an alternative type of exercise. And then we've been doing entertainment for the monthly birthday parties, so that pays for a lot of the their pay, the vendors' pay. Food purchases, again, I lowered that a little bit because it could come out of other line items, and we would still have enough. So, I mean, there's not too many changes on my budget.
Just a question, can you explain how we pay for some people on Lifeline?
So,
Or how do we identify or determine who we
okay, so
pay?
myself and our social worker, Ann Albano, know a lot of the members that are a little bit more special need financially. But we also get referrals from other people, such as Office on Aging. We may get a call from a hospital. We may get, different calls throughout town or APS. And when we decide to take someone on to pay for Lifeline, we do ask them to bring stuff in, or we meet them at their house to kind of assess what is their income. Are they on a fixed income? What are their expenses before we go ahead and agree? Do they have someone else that's able to pay for things like this? If we're paying for something like that, we're not going to put them on. We have a senior cupboard, which is a food pantry for seniors in need. They have a great financial need. We're not going to also do that. It's kind of one or the other, so we see which is needed most.
Does anybody have any questions?
Lou, on the sheet that you provided us with the discretionary and non-discretionary, one of the items, uniforms 400, you know that sheet I'm talking about? Yes. On 228? So uniforms increased 400, or is that the total?
That's the total. I don't have to get every year. It's every other year for their contract. So last year, there was nothing in the contract for,
So why would that be on the discretionary? If that's,
That was a misclassification by myself.
so it is, okay, I just wanted
Yes.
to check that. So I'm going to move that over, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, but you also mentioned that under the food, that there was other dollars and other line items
So-
that you could supplant that with? Could you explain that?
so we do a lot of different events and activities at the senior center. And if we're doing a huge, say a Valentine's party or something like that, there's certain things that can come out of program supplies. There's certain things that can come out of special events. Entertainment can come out of special events. It could also come out of the vendor pay. So it's a matter of balancing where it comes out of. The food can come out of, if we're catering it, it could come out of the food. It could also come out of the special events. Again, a matter of balancing. If we're doing something smaller, a class for 15 or 20 people, sometimes, depending on what the class is, we actually just did a soup-making class in mason jars. Some of that food could come out of just food, or it could come out of the supplies. We're buying the mason jars, we're buying certain things for these classes. So we just try to balance it out, and looking, at the budget and seeing what was left over, I just tried to balance as best I could and not ask for more than what we need.
So Lou, wouldn't it be better that the line item, the dollars be moved into the different line items instead of balancing out? Wouldn't it make it a more accurate budget?
Sure. I mean, if there's any purchases that she could take from other line items because they're better classified, then we can definitely reduce it from the one line item and allocate it properly to where it needs to be taken out of, so that it's a more accurate depiction of, where her total spending is.
I mean, because when you get your purchase orders, right, you're gonna code it to that line
Absolutely.
item, and then it
Mhm.
wouldn't be really in the right
Correct.
line.
Correct.
Like sometimes from year to year, the problem is we don't do the same events and the same parties. So what I maybe spent stuff on last year and what line item, I may not this year. And sometimes, like I said, with something like the vendors and entertainment, it can fall under special events or a vendor. The fee for for a band or a singer could go either way because they're entertainment.
Oh.
Does that make sense to you? Or-
Yeah, it totally makes sense. It's just on an accounting perspective, it just doesn't.
Absolutely. We
not
would want to
accurate,
match up
yeah.
apples to apples, if we're, budgeting for an entertainment piece in a line item budgeted for entertainment, we obviously would want to make sure that purchase order for that specific thing is charged to the right.
I mean, but would it make sense then throughout the year to look at the budget and see where maybe we could do a budget adjustment?
Any budget adjustments as far as transfers, even if there's, even if we're, not so much for over expenditures, but we could definitely, if we see the need that, because for certain, if things were budgeted, charged out incorrectly, we could definitely do budget transfers, within the last 2 months of the year, that if we needed to do a budget adjustment, budget correction, it can absolutely be handled, during those 2 months of the year, so it's more accurate, absolutely.
Another consideration, just to be able to maintain the flexibility, is just to combine some of these categories into one.
Do that as
Because
well.
there is so much overlap, and the programs do change so frequently.
yeah.
And we're not talking about, in the scheme of things on the municipal budget, we're not talking about giant dollar amounts anyway.
Right.
It might be easier just to put them into one category rather than 3 or 4
That'd be
with so
easier
much
for
overlap.
me.
That's sure, and I
We
think
can
it would
absolutely
make,
look
It
into
would.
that
I think it
too,
would make,
yeah.
I think it would make more sense, especially with the amounts that we're talking about with your particular department, Mel.
I would agree with that.
So Mel, basically what you did was you reduced some of your programs by $500, but then increased special events by $1,500. So really, that's what you did. You moved line item money out of it.
Overall, for those 4 line items, I reduced 2,000, and the professionals, the 415 was increased by 1,500, so.
How many residents are we serving typically?
Typically, I could have anywhere from, on any given day, anywhere from 75 to 200 people, depending on what's going on. Some days we have 6 or 7 events on a particular day. Other days, we may have 1 large event and 2 smaller events, so.
So most of the services we supply, and I know many of them because my family has used them, besides the special events, the nice things, flu shots, I mean, that's, a necessity, right? That goes by income verification, all that kind of stuff. What kind of impact would it have if we had to reduce just some of the funds for special events?
First, we
I
would,
mean, you'll just shift things around, instead of having a instructor in, you may do something different.
well, we already try to do different things ourselves as well. Myself, Carol, who's my program coordinator, and 1 or 2 in the office. Special events, 1-day things that we're not paying someone out. We try to do that a few times a year. But a lot of the services that we provide, many of our members wouldn't be able to do any of that without us. They would be just sitting home probably.
But they would still be able to come
They'd
for
be able to,
lunch.
they'd be able to come for lunch, because lunch, we don't provide that. Another company provides that.
Okay.
Interfaith Neighbors does, and they donate to them. So they would be coming for that.
And that's a social time for them. And that's the most important social time is, I believe, is being with their peers and discussing, even complaining about aches and pains.
Sure.
So I think that does a lot for them.
Going back to flu shots, do we bill the insurance companies for that?
No, no. The flu shots come out of our budget, and seniors do come and get their flu shots. And then whatever is left over goes over to the villages for a clinic and to Surrey Downs for a clinic.
So can we look at that process? to possibly be able to bill it out that we can regain through the insurance companies?
I mean, that's really not a question for me. you
I'm
know.
just posing the question.
Yeah, we really try not to be obtaining people's information like that, so I don't,
Have we looked into the county services? Because I know the county does flu shots at no cost.
well, we buy all the vials, but the Board of Health is the one who comes and does the shots for everyone.
So it's a shared service, just that we buy the vaccine.
Aren't any of these things covered by grants anymore?
We've not gotten a grant for flu shots.
Well, anything in general, part of your services.
Part of our services, we have one grant through Office on Aging, and that is used either for extra programs, or we used it for a program last year, as well as for some furniture, to buy 2 new computer desks and partitions for the 4 spare computers that we have, that we teach computer classes to seniors. That grant, we couldn't use it to buy a new desk for myself. It has to be for something for the seniors. So programs, or, like I said, I bought a pool table with it. It's for the seniors.
Couldn't it be used to offset some of the things that you do anyway?
That's
That are in your budget?
Well, that's what we do. We use our budget and that, and the
No,
grant.
offset, I said.
If you
Offset
lower,
some of
if
the
you
things.
take away, then that's what I would have to do. And then just have less programs, offer less things.
And just so I'm reading that right, Lou, what's that grant amount?
We receive $27,500 from the Office on Aging.
Is that matching?
It's a match in the sense that we have to match the 4 employees that are listed under the grant. The township has to pick up the cost of their salaries. So in a sense, it is a matching grant, yes.
Of that, the 4,000 of it is what we are able to
For
use
other expenses?
One other question, I'm sorry.
I just was going to ask, aren't there any more grants available for aging?
This is
For
what
the
we,
things that we do, this seems
So-
to me in the past, we've had more than one grant.
so far, this is what I've come across. We've had this for a long time. We used to get more, but they did lower it several years back, before my time.
This is a question that, in general, I'm not sure if anybody has the answer, but does the Department of Health, do they bill for the flu shots? Because I do believe that they do bill for services. So, I don't know, maybe we could have them, instead of just coming in to, just administer, maybe they can purchase and then bill for those services, and it doesn't come out of our, out of our budget. Maybe that's something that we could look into.
Sure.
Capital? You got some capital requests?
So the first one that I did put in was for new cabinetry and a new kitchenette. Our cabinets are falling apart. When we had the carpet and the flooring put in downstairs last year, the cabinet that we had just fell apart when they had to take it away. DPW did put a new one in, but it's not a new one. They found it, I'm not sure where. Our space is a premium for us at the senior center, with storing things for the different programs, and most of our cabinets are falling apart. Another one that I did ask for is upstairs in the main room where everything is, because right now we just have a table that everything sits on, the coffee, the different things that we offer in the morning. Having a cabinet and countertop there would help out a lot. So this, I went over to Lowe's and got some estimates for that price.
that's in the book.
Yeah, that's what they've asked for, but that's not what's on our list.
You have any other questions? Yeah.
And then I see you have the parking lot?
Yeah, I think that kind of got nixed. That we wouldn't get enough, we wouldn't get much, for the price we'd pay for it, we wouldn't get many spaces.
How many current spaces do you have?
4, and then people park on the grass, and then they have to park at the big parking lot and walk down quite a distance to get in, which many members complain about because they're also carrying lots of stuff. So it's difficult for them. Staff only park on the grass. They don't park in the
If
lot.
they're carrying things, can't they come to the door, to the back door down the hill, and then move their vehicles?
They could, they just don't.
Well,
it's a
there are a lot of
recommendation.
people that can't pay their taxes, so they receive a lot of services, and I think it's a wonderful program. I always have. I'm old enough to utilize it, but I don't. It's not necessary in my life. I'm too busy still taking care of other people. So I think they can park down the hill. Also, one thing that we can't allow, that I've heard mentioned several times, is the removal of the trees to make parking spaces.
Well, that was it, we nixed this whole,
I know, but
Yeah.
at some point, you'll ask for it again, and you are barring trouble if you pull out those trees. The trees are there to hold the hill up. You're going to have a washout and a lot of trouble, so don't even put in for that again. If you can come up with some other idea that only takes money and time, and we have it, well, welcome, but please don't try to take the trees out. Somebody might not be up here that will remember them. I'll only be here for a couple more years. Thank you. If that's all about that, I have a question about vehicles.
Please.
I would like a description of all the vehicles that are in your department and their condition.
so I have a 2016 Ford Fusion, we just got that. That has 1,375 miles. We do use that. We also have a 2012 Dodge minivan that we use with 15,903 miles. And then we have 3 14-passenger buses that are used daily. They do about 6 runs apiece every day. The one is a 2005 Ford 14-passenger. It has 162,560 miles on it. We have a 2007 Chevy 14-passenger that has 125,000 miles on it. And then we have another 2007 Chevy 14-passenger, and that has 125,400 miles on it.
And you're asking for another. Is that to replace one of these, or?
So we have one 20-passenger that has gone out to bid to replace the 2005 that has over 162,000 miles on it.
If it's gone out to bid, it's already been approved.
Yes, that's from,
And you want another one?
yes.
No. No. Also, there's only, in these lists that we were given of vehicles that we have, good condition, poor condition, it doesn't matter what, there's only one vehicle listed under seniors. None of those others are listed. So that's how accurate your lists are. And I think we can make do on the vehicles for a little while. That's my vote. That's my answer to my questions, thank you.
Evelyn?
I'm sorry, just repeat, how many runs do these 14-passenger vehicles make?
They usually do about 6 a day, sometimes a little more with deliveries.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor,
I'm good.
anything else? No. Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mel.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming too. I know it was
Yeah.
tough changing the date like that. Mr. O'Donnell, Municipal Court? It'll be now, the Howell Court will be next.
Which is?
Good
Courts.
evening, Mayor, Council.
Good
First,
evening.
Mayor O'Donnell, your court administrator.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you all.
Court starts on page 208 in your budget booklets, and the J sheets,
We have some minor changes this year in the budget.
J23.
I'm sorry, Jay,
23, 23.
thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank the governing body for the privilege of serving as your court administrator for another year. We look forward to continuing to strive to make Howell Township Court the best in Monmouth County in service to our court customers and the public. There is a little bit more of an increase in 2017's budget than in 2016, and I will try to explain these requested increases. Firstly, there are the normal TWU step increases as the salary structure indicates, which I'm sure you're all aware of. But the most important thing is that I have included in my budget request for an additional assistant violations clerk, which I will address shortly. This court, Howell Township Court, had always had 6 full-time employees and the court administrator prior to 2014. Up to 2016, we were operating with 3 full-time, a seasonal, and the court administrator. We now have 4 full-time, a seasonal, and myself. The Howell Court's caseload has dramatically increased since last year at this time. For instance, at this time last year, we had disposed of 1,094 cases. As of now, we have disposed of, and these are like quarterly reports from there. We disposed of 2,084.
You,
Okay.
from January to today?
Well, we have, no, that was from say for instance, they do normally, this was probably from the end of August till the end of December. So from the end of August and the end of December 2015, we only did about 1,000. This year, we did 2,000,
This year, 2016.
correct. For 2016, the end of 2016. We have active pending now, maybe somewhere in the area of about 2,100. This time last year, we had maybe in the area of about 1,200. And it's going to increase, and I'll address that issue as we go along as to why. The other line items, there is hardly any increase at all. We have asked for no capital or anything like that because right now we're pretty much set as far as our surroundings are concerned. The only thing is a minor increase is maybe some office chairs that need to be replaced and some carpets and some new chair mats. The increase in our printing budget or in our office supplies is only due to the increase that will be happening with our caseload. If we go back to when I prepared the budget, we had an active caseload of 2,361 cases. And the active caseload as of October 2015 was 1,135. So you can see how it's dramatically increasing. And as far as the justification, as I would like to address for you, as far as my, having an additional violations clerk, in the beginning of the year, they have started, I'm sure that everyone is aware of, bail reform. It has created more cases for ourselves. We were introduced this, and we had a seminar in September in Monmouth County at the Monmouth Fire Academy, which our township manager, Mr. Mayfield, was gracious enough to come to because they wanted to explain to all the municipalities how the court load was going to increase in every municipal court. Because before, we would only handle DP cases, disorderly persons or petty disorderly persons cases. Now, we are getting remanded from the prosecutor's office and the criminal division, fourth degree, and believe it or not, a lot of third degree cases. Our caseload increase is really starting to build up now. It's really very, very hard. I have set some comparative courts that basically, just to give you an idea of staffing as far as that's concerned. Wall Township, which also has Spring Lake Heights and Seagirt Court, has a combined caseload of 2,291 cases. That's just about where we are right now, and they have 7 full-time staff and 1 part-time. Middletown Township Court has a caseload of 2,577 cases as of, and all of these figures are as of October because that's when I had done that. And they have 6 full-time staff and 1 part-time. And to give you sort of an idea where we are, Field Township has an active caseload right now of 964 cases, and they have 4 full-time staff and 1 part-time, basically what I have, which is not just their active caseload of 964. The assistant violations clerk would help tremendously. We have 7 phone lines, and we are trying to reduce the overtime. I know that you can see that that was the other reason the line item budget was increased. If you'll notice, the increase in the overtime budget was by $20,000. We have eliminated evening court sessions on Wednesday. It's not completely eliminated. I'm just talking about on a regular basis. We have some of them scheduled for trials, and we accommodate people, a lot of people who are working and can't get off from their employer. So we do try to accommodate them still with some 5 p.m. sessions. I have to admit that most of the municipal courts in Monmouth County, I think there's only maybe 2 or 3, perhaps 4, that even have evening sessions. They all just have day session courts. As far as the overtime increase, that was mainly due to the caseload increase. We didn't get another deputy until, I guess, around May of 2000. So there was only 2 of us on call, which then my other deputy, who gets paid for any comp time she cashes out, decided to cash out all of her comp time instead of taking any days off, because if she took a day off during the week and there was overtime, she wouldn't get paid for the overtime. That's the way the TWU contract was written. So I do apologize for that. As far as the increase in caseload, we've been trying very, very hard. I can give you an example. Just last week, I was out sick for a week unexpectedly. Then there was someone in a class, and then someone was on a vacation, and we had 140 cases, and we did inform Mr. Mayfield that, we only had 3 staff left. 2 had to be in the courtroom, and 1 inside the court office to take payments, answer the phones, 7 lines. So we're pretty much understaffed. So I was just wondering if you would be gracious enough, the salary is only, as the TWU contract is 35 and change. And it would help because if you looked at what we paid out in overtime this year, it was 53,000. And the year before, in 2015, was only approximately 30,000. So,
You do know the number that you're quoting is just the salary, that's not including fringe benefits and all the other things.
I understand, sir.
So,
Yes.
what
But
happens
I
in a
did want-
case?
One other thing, I know that we are, as the court and as the judiciary always states to us, we are not to be as considered moneymakers for the towns. But we bring in about somewhere between $730,000, $750,000 a year. And my budget is nowhere close to that, so we're sort of, I don't want to use the word self-sufficient, but I realize that I understand what you're talking about as far as health benefits.
I'll go one further, because I don't want to speak for the council, I only speak for myself. You know, these are tough times.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you're aware of that. So what the decision is going to be as far as increase in personnel, I don't know, but, you know, I know what I feel personally. But let me ask you a question. In a case where you're short personnel, would it come to the manager? Does it go to the Superior Court, to the administrative? Do they have a pool of, we need help and?
No. What we do is we'll pull some staff from in-house, which we've done multiple times
Okay.
this year to assist over the court,
Okay.
where we take it from another department, and that department will be left
Okay.
short.
So we have a plan in place
We've,
in those kind of scenarios?
yes.
And how often has that been happening?
It happened a few times in 2016 for several days at a clip.
Right, it was when we had one, we had a employee out for quite a bit, and one of staff from up here at Global came to help out, who was familiar with court, and she came and she helped out. Unfortunately, when you run into these situations, say for instance, as I was told today, we have another calendar this Friday that's 140. My seasonal only works Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursdays. She's retired. I have another staff just told me today that her father has to have surgery on Friday. It is extremely tough to be able to answer 7 phones. Our caseload is just getting heavier and heavier because of them remanding all of those cases from the prosecutor's office and from the criminal division. It's just going to get worse.
Well, let's hope not. Let's hope the legislators get smart and that their bill reform is not working the way they thought it was going to work.
I hope so, sir. But in the meantime,
I hear.
we're getting a little bit behind.
Just a question, clarification. Is there any special certification that someone needs
It's the same amount.
for this
No.
position?
Same person.
No.
No.
They can be taught. Our most recent person who came to us came from within Global, and she worked in code enforcement, and we trained her, and she's going to classes.
Did you say you just had one seasonal person?
Yes, ma'am.
Why is the amount of money doubled from last year then?
Because before we were only using her for a half a day, ma'am.
And that's
Okay.
the amount of time?
Yeah, we were using
And
her
that's
for,
the only reason?
well,
that's
yeah,
fine.
because it's doubled
Yeah,
now.
that's fine.
Yep,
It just, we need to know why.
that's okay. More than happy to address your concerns.
Any other questions? Rob?
No.
Evelyn? Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. I hope you all have a wonderful and pleasant evening.
Thank you, you too.
Tax Collector's Office will go next with Ms. Lippincott. Thank you, Neil.
Hi. Lou, what page?
The budget booklet starts on page 25, and on the J sheets, it would be page J4.
So there's only been a few changes.
Sorry.
In the budget in the tax office. One is the advertising costs, which we use for our lien sale.
Could you say that again?
The advertising costs that we use for our lien sale.
Okay.
That has increased. We don't know how many people are on the lien sale until it actually happens. And I believe the fees for the advertising itself has increased. So we just need to make sure there's enough money encumbered. The conference fees, we have one of our employees just became certified tax collector. So she's going to have to keep up on her educational credits to keep her certification. So we had to add her in for conference fees in order to obtain that. And just general office equipment, our chairs are in disarray. So we were just asking for new chairs for the office.
Just a question. The deputy tax collector for 16, is that the same person in 17?
Yes, that's myself.
And the salary went down?
No, I think it was put in incorrectly last year.
And what you have here for upgrades, that's what you just mentioned?
The upgrades, I believe, were declined by management. But I believe the upgrades were for everybody throughout the department.
What does that mean?
Do you?
I didn't get them for everybody through the department, but the
Okay.
ones, I got a couple for your department, and they've been denied so far.
Okay.
So does upgrades mean salary increase, or?
Correct.
Evelyn? Rob?
Anything?
No.
I have everything.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Emil. That was easy, right? Next will be tax assessor, Mr. Hutchinson.
The tax assessor should also be on page J4, right under tax collection. And on the budget request sheets, they begin on page 32.
Good evening, everybody.
Welcome
Hi.
back, Greg. How you feeling?
Feeling great.
Long time no see.
I'm finally back, getting back to where I need to be. All right, don't know where you want me to start. I don't have a lot going on in my budget, obviously. We have the professional services that, the biggest chunk of that comes from our inspections, which we have a contract for yearly inspections, 20%. Other than that, everything's pretty self-explanatory. We have a CAMA system that we have to use, and a Mod 4 system, which we have a shared service with the Monmouth County Board of Taxation. We have things like farmland application mailings and Chapter 91 income and expense things that are statutory required for us to send out to the residents that use those things. Other than that, it's pretty self-explanatory. Our operating budget actually has gone down slightly this year from years past.
So Greg, we implemented the ADP program. We are seeing a decrease in tax appeals in
Yes.
Howell Township, right? What kind of impact is that having on your budget, being that we're seeing, I see for other professionals, consultants, and I'm assuming that's in that line item?
Yeah,
for appeal?
the appraiser, that has dwindled. We, with the ADP, a lot of what we're doing is trying to settle state tax appeals, using that to, work within the constraints of the law to try to settle those without having to use a full appraisal. But you need to have that ability to use an appraiser if needed when you have a $45 million property in tax appeals. Sometimes it's inevitable to deal with that. But we use it sparingly.
So you encumbered, in that line item, about 152,000.
Yes.
You requested 155. I think the manager
Yeah.
didn't make any adjustment on that. So with the decrease in these appeals, is it safe to say that you're not gonna go above what you encumbered or expended, encumbered in 2016, and there might be a little adjustment that could be made in that line item?
Again, this conversation is one that it's a tough conversation to have in the sense that.
They're all tough.
Right, absolutely. For me, I'm the only one. That's the only one I care about. No, but with that
But you
being
don't have
said-
many areas to cut from.
No, exactly. And it's a situation where the appeals are, there's going to be some kind of appeals, and we do our best to try to, as I said, do it in-house as opposed to paying that outside appraiser. And for the most part, we do a pretty good job of it. But the only thing is, sometimes it's inevitable, and there's cases that are big dollar cases that, if they go to trial, it's going to be costly. It's going to probably be even more than the $20,000 that we asked for in our budget. But as I said, we've been, that number started out years ago as $50,000, but we trim it down every year because we don't use it, but it's just a matter of when we do need it, are we going to have it, kind of a thing.
So I believe, would we go down almost 17% in reduction in appeals for this?
We're down
Tax
from
appeals.
250, I think, last year for county appeals to 200 this year. And state appeals were dwindling the number. But state appeals are a little misleading right now because if somebody files a county appeal and they don't win, sometimes they take it to the
It
state.
could appeal to the state.
Yeah, so it's, and that's, just because they file it doesn't mean they're going to.
No, I
necessarily win.
I
Right.
understand. So if I had to look at that, and that was my decision where I had to cut a few dollars from there.
As long as we can get it if we need it somewhere else.
Okay,
Yeah,
I
that's.
got my answers.
Evelyn? No. Thank you very much.
No problem. Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
See you later.
You're up, Mr. Nunziato. Sewer utility will be next.
Hello?
The sewer utility starts on page 221 in the budget booklets and is the final page on the J sheet, so that is page J25.
Go, Bill.
Very good, thank you. Okay, good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
As far as the O&E budget, there's a couple items that have some increase to them. For instance, the first one, office supplies. We switched to the Edmunds software, and they have special billing that they use for that. Uniforms, I got 2 employees last year, thank you very much. They were sorely needed, and of course, contractually requiring their boots and their shirts and uniforms and et cetera has created that increase that was requested. I have 2 big ones. Maintenance of lines and maintenance of equipment are 2 of my largest operating line items. The first one, the operating maintenance of lines, I mean, that's basically what it is the repair and maintenance of the sewer lines. What I'd like to do this year, which we've never done before, and I'm trying to mirror Freehold and some of the other towns, actually go out to bid and have a contractor, if you will, that's on call. If there's any issues, emergencies, and et cetera, you call them, you have an hourly rate, it's time and labor. And we do have some areas that we're watching that really aren't a big problem, but again, when it's an emergency, I mean, we've had ones where they were $12,000, $9,000. I had one last week was $3,500. It's hard to do that in a capital program because, you can't budget for or plan for any kind of emergency repairs. I know it looks like it's excessive, but typically, you see a couple $1,000s would be the service contract itself, and then anything after that would be, of course, if the repairs are needed. Again, it's hard to predict how much you would possibly need there, but on average, a repair where you'd actually have to take out the sidewalk and dig down and trench box and make a repair, it's a couple $1,000s a piece. So we were looking at, on average, we do 3 or 4 of these a year. So that's how we basically came up with a $20,000 increase in request on the maintenance of lines. The other big one is the equipment maintenance and repair. We have 10 stations, 10 emergency generators. Some are natural gas, some are diesel. What I'd like to do this year, which again we haven't done yet, is do a maintenance contract. I've already got 3 proposals out there from last year, and the prices are about $6,000 just for the maintenance contract. They come out, they do the maintenance, the oil, the belts, and et cetera. They run it. That's for the year. And of course, if there's any parts that are needed, that becomes extra. I also like to add into the maintenance and repair a pump and electrical contractor, an emergency contractor. I mean, there's times the pumps, fail, they short out. I mean, our guys will go out there and we'll pull the pumps and rewire them, but some of the controls and electric is a little bit beyond our means. There are emergency companies that do come out there. Again, you get one under contract and put them on call, and that's what we're anticipating that money would be used for that increase. We also have some maintenance items, for instance, inside the buildings of our stations. Motorized louvers, the double check valves. One of our stations needs a new winch. We'd like to replace the backup batteries in all our alarm systems. I mean, and that's a little bit costly as well too. So that's where else that money we were looking for would go to. The other increases in O&E are really, I guess, Lou, you had, there's some in here for statutory audits, and oh no, actually, that one didn't increase. I think employee health benefits was one. Well, MRSA, obviously, and then PERS. The rest of the stuff is really, departmental O&E increases and not the operational day-to-day stuff that I do.
So on these contracts that you were talking about, so you're talking about a $6,000 annual, but is there an hourly rate as well that goes with that?
Yes.
What is that?
Depends. Anywhere between 75 and 125 an hour.
Thanks.
You're saying there's still an hourly rate? on a maintenance agreement for generators?
No, for instance, let's take one of the stations. They may say, I'll do that station for $500. It's a 40 kilowatt generator. $500, and we'll do the annual maintenance for the year. And then maybe Parkside is an 85 kilowatt, that's $750. So just to do the maintenance on everything is, I think 6,100 was my low bid for this year. So that covers just the maintenance of all. But if you had them come out and do any kind of repair work, for instance, you had an alarm that went off and it was flashing and you couldn't get it to reset, they needed to troubleshoot and possibly replace some parts, the hourly rate for, service repairs would be 75, 85, 95. There are state contracts, unfortunately not for what we want though. And they're about that price range.
And it's the same hourly rate, 24 hours a day?
I don't know, probably not, but we would hope so. We would ask that, of course, we want an
course.
hourly rate regardless, sure.
Because I'm sure something doesn't need to be addressed at 5 PM.
Exactly,
But at
right.
3 AM, I'm sure it does.
Right, correct.
So you have the inclusion of health benefits. Just for my point of clarification, doesn't administration cover the whole health benefit piece? Why would this be broken out?
We allocate a certain portion because the sewer utility does have employees that are covered under health benefits. The entire billing is billed in the current fund, and we allocate a portion to the sewer utility that then reimburses the current fund for the portion of the employees that are covered under the sewer utility and
Okay.
pay it over to
Maybe
the
we
current
need to
fund.
get a little bit more basic than that. You do know that the sewer authority it's a whole separate pot, because only the people who need sewer and are charged for the sewer, so that consequently, even the health benefits and whatever, it's
It
a
just gets
separate
separated
figure.
out. Okay. Thank you.
That, if you understand that,
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
easier.
Evelyn?
You have some capital as well.
Do you have anything that I'd like to find some things to cut out, but I haven't come up with any questions yet.
Deputy Mayor?
So, Bill, should we not go with these repair contracts, what's gonna happen? You gonna continue doing it in-house the way you've been doing it, or,
We can only do so much ourselves.
and then whatever you can't do, you going out,
Right.
getting it done anyway?
Well, what we've done in the past, quite frankly, if we know there's one that we'd like to address, I've been trying to work with Jim Herman in Community Development, and if he's doing any kind of road reconstruction or something to that effect, I'd kind of ask him to throw it in as part of his contract. But some of these roads I know we had done already, so there's nothing going to happen on that front. But that's kind of how we've tried to address it in the past, is working with other departments to add it into their contract as an extra.
So when we open up the road, do we automatically go in and review everything that's there?
Well, typically, community development will say, hey, we're going to do something on whatever street, do you have any issues? And, we'll send our guys out, we'll TV the lines. If everything looks good, we'll say, no, there's not a problem. One case, we looked at one, Marion or Aldrich Drive down that way, and we had a sag in the line. So they were addressing that as part of when they did their reconstruction. So yes, we typically do.
So it goes out you do it proactively, in
Yes.
essence?
Yes.
Was there any capital for request?
Of course. My first and biggest request, of course, is the jet truck. Unfortunately, Councilman Walsh and I probably had this conversation 5 years ago, and it was one more year.
Yeah, but you got the camera truck.
Right.
I was here.
The jet truck, again, is a 1991 Vacon. it's old, and it's tired, and we'd like to get it replaced.
And is the cost $800,000?
375. Or
Maybe
three,
one more year.
I'd like to say we could do one more year, but
Sorry.
I just had it inspected in February. And what they found is that the subframe is starting to deteriorate. And they gave me a cost estimate. Now, you know, it could go another year, it could go another day, but basically, when the subframe is deteriorating, they'd have to basically take the boom, the pump, the hydraulic lines, the electric, the water pump, the auxiliary engine, the big debris tank, take it all apart, put a new subframe on, and then reassemble the whole entire truck. $41,983 just to repair that on a 26-year-old truck. It is under state contract. We do have a $5,000 to $7,000 trade-in value on it. And, you know, the problem with the truck, quite frankly, is we get it inspected every 6 months. And there's probably $10,000 or $15,000 worth of miscellaneous, you know, lighting and bells and whistles and buttons that they just don't make the parts anymore. So when they stop working, they just don't work. You know, the truck's so old that it's actually exempted from inspection. And quite frankly, the reason the truck is as expensive as it is now is due to all the federal emissions regulations that have come into play in the last 3 or 4 years.
So, how often do we use this jet truck?
In the last 5 years, we've used it between 32 and 42 weeks a year. Typically, we have 2 siphons, one on Church Road and one on Ramtown Greenville. We jet them every other week. We vac out our pump stations every other week. And then we jet and vac the commercial lines along Route 9 and some of the other areas where they pick up. And, you know, they have asked us, well, we have another truck in Public Works. Yes, we do. The problem with that is we have our hose on our jet truck. We had this jet truck designed to inspect for our pump stations in 1991. It's got a 700-foot hose, three-quarter-inch diameter hose, 700 feet. The one in Public Works has a 1-inch hose. It's a little stiffer, and it's a lot harder to get that in an 8-inch pipe. I mean, drainage pipes in Public Works, 15, 18, 24, 30, we're 8. It's very hard to use a 1-inch hose. We run at 30 gallons a minute, 3,000 PSI. That truck only, the big red one in Public Works, only does 20 gallons a minute, 2,000 PSI. We do need the extra pressure. More importantly, too, our truck, the old blue truck, has a 3-stage fan. Now, some of our stations, Parkside's 34 feet deep, Woodburn's 26. You need a 3-stage fan to get down that deep. There's only a 2-stage fan in the Public Works truck, which only goes 12 feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, which is okay for storm drains, but not for wet wells. The boom on our truck extends out 10 feet. Theirs only goes out 6 feet. And we actually have to extend it all the way out in 3 of our stations because they're in a little easement in the woods, between 2 houses. So the truck was actually spec'd for what we needed for. And then the big, you know, double axle Public Works truck, yeah, it can vac and it can jet, but it can't vac out our wet wells, which we use it for regularly.
Is there any reason why we can't standardize the trucks? I mean, and as we move forward, or when we're purchasing from one department to the other?
Well, we've had the jet truck, like I said, since the early 90s. And then I guess around 2004, the stormwater rules and regs came into effect, and they required you to take 5 years and actually GPS or identify all your catch basins. And as a Tier A municipality, we were required to start jetting and backing them, which is actually why we bought the second truck, because it was a bigger truck, had more volume, and it was designed to do that. You know, so that's a hard thing to answer, because the needs of a jet vac truck for sewer, when you've got 30, 35-foot wet wells versus
It's a
what you...
specialty item, in other words.
Right, correct.
Got some other capitals you want to discuss?
Yeah, the other ones are pretty simple. I was looking at I&I, manhole and lateral rehab. We have roughly 50 miles of sewer, probably more now. And there are some areas where we're in the swamp, we're off-road, you know, it's not in developments. And there is technology out there, and I was looking for $15,000 for an acoustical company to come in, and they actually put sound waves through these lines, and they can see if there's any I&I or any buildup, and you know, you just can't get a truck in some of these areas. So that was one program we'd like to explore. And we actually did a $15,000 expenditure at the end of last year for this trenchless technology, and we're actually going to start that, I believe, the end of April. And I'm hoping that's successful, and I'd like to come out and, based on what we find with this acoustical technology, budget a little bit more in capital to try to come up with a contract to repair any problems we may find with this GIS acoustical exploration of the sanitary lines that are in the easements and the wooded areas and the swamps and all that, under the streams, et cetera.
So what have we done in the past? Because I know we budgeted numerous times for I&I. I know we did it, I think, in Freewood Acres. That was an area of some,
We did some work, yes, and then what we wanted to actually do is GIS the whole entire town and put it into 3, 4, 5, 6 sub-areas, and then put some meters in and identify one area at a time and check dry flow versus wet flow to see if
but
there
didn't
was
we
a-
do that? Didn't we?
We started it, and we had a contract with one consultant, and that contract was stopped, and our current consultant has really kind of been working on Route 9, and I think this is kind of on the back burner, and according to Mr. Herman, the proposals he got from them, he thought was excessive. So really, we're waiting to get the mapping completed so we can actually break it into certain areas and look at it. There is some money in I&I, yes, but that was more for the mapping and that kind of work.
Have all those funds been used, or do so we still have some funding?
We probably do, however, I don't know, Lou, how when they do the bond ordinance, if it's very specific as to what you can use it for. Sometimes they do that, and you can't use it for A if it's written for B, you know what I mean?
Correct. Those funds were, that project was funded by capital improvement fund proceeds within the sewer utilities, so we didn't need to issue debt for those funds, so I would think that if we needed to use it for a separate purpose, I will double-check with our bond counsel, but I'm sure that if we needed to reallocate some of those funds to pursue a separate study, that could be done because we didn't have to issue any debt for the I&I study. That was approved in the, I believe, the 15 or 16 budget.
Yeah, let's look into that one.
Okay, that's reasonable. Two more. Next one I have is the Woodburn Pump Station rehabilitation. The Woodburn Pump Station is actually right behind us. It's the manhole at the driveway that cuts through the firehouse, that actually discharges into that station. It basically services 45 single-family residences on Barry Drive and Canaan Court, and about 18 to 20 commercial properties on Route 9. It was last reconstructed in 1985 when they tied the Route 9 extension in. It's 26-foot deep, the station. It's got 30 horsepower submersible grinder pumps, and then the force main goes about 1,500 feet and meanders through the woods and ties in the Windmill Club. We'd like to refurbish that well. The inside of the well, we'd like to put all new rails, all new pumps, an electrical system, what hasn't been touched in over 30 years, and it's due. We have issues with the electric. There's no ladder, there's no basket. The rails are starting to corrode inside the wet well. And we've actually spoken to our utility consultant, and we'd like to go out and look at it either next week or the week after. And we'd like to get this station done this year, hopefully.
So you'll have a report after that inspection?
Well, they're gonna look to do like what do you want to call it, engineer's estimate for the repairs? Because this would certainly have to go out to bid. This is not something that, we can do in-house, or you can
No, I
just-
know. So the 125 is, you think is a number that is on mark, or
Well-
after you do this?
We're going to ask for more? Now, I actually had spoken to our licensed operator. We had a meeting about a week or two ago, and he said to me, the last time we did a major rehab like this was Ramtown and Winding Brook. And he said, if you do the same type of work in two stations, your bang for the buck is a lot better. He said, let's take a look at this one, and actually Tanglewood is the next oldest one. He said, we might be able to actually cover both stations using this and possibly a little bit of leftover capital from another line item that's written so that it would be appropriate. So we're actually looking to do two, but at this point, this should be enough absolutely to do one, but if I can get similar work done at a second one.
But can you let us know? I mean, because that's important in that decision-making.
Sure,
If
of
we know
course.
we're going to get two, then it may be a no-brainer.
Right. Well, this one does need it, though, because I'm afraid my rails are gonna, fall off the walls one day, and I won't be able to get my pumps out. I know it's coming, but hopefully not tomorrow. And yes, we're scheduled to have the meeting sometime later this month. And then lastly is the the SCADA system. SCADA is short for Supervisory Control and Data Acquisition. And what it basically does is it allows you to remotely monitor the stations. Most of the utility companies are going to this. A lot of the other towns have it. Basically, there's a central controller in your office, and then each one of the stations has a remote terminal, or RTU if they call it. And it basically allows you to monitor your alarms, timestamp events when a chunk comes through, a big flow comes in, your pump start times, your flow history, your pump cycle data, and actually all your alarms. So you basically could know from your house, from your desk, from your phone. We have two stations, newer stations, that we're taking over. And if we were to get this in at least one station, once we have it in, we can actually upgrade the rest of the stations. They already have the technology for it. Of course, some of our older ones do not. And we'd like to get this started this year. From what I'm told from one of our consultants, Equestra Station may come into our possession later this year, and then we'll have to be maintaining that one as well.
So does it make the operation more efficient? I mean, how you doing that now?
Well, from 7 to 3:30, we have Complete Security as our alarm system, our alarm company, and all our stations are wired to their central unit. Anytime an alarm goes off, they get the call. It's just like a house alarm. And
So would this eliminate that process? We would no longer need that outside contractor to monitor?
If you had every station alarmed, yes, you could do it yourself. You would not need the alarm company, but you'd have to have them all.
So how many would this 50,000?
I've talked to a bunch of different people, and as a matter of fact, MRSA is in a process of doing this as well, too. I don't think it can get all of them, but it could possibly get half, depending on how the technology is. I mean, some people have proprietary software, and unfortunately with that, if there's no support, or they go belly up, you have nothing, so you want to use something that's not going to put you in that.
But there's a potential then we would change all the systems to meet this SCADA system somewhere down the road.
Correct, yes. That, ultimately, just like Freehold has. They have every single station on their SCADA. And he can sit on his iPad and say, oh, that station went on, that one's doing 40 gallons a minute, the alarm went off here, 2 o'clock in the morning yesterday. Yes, but again, they've been doing it for a couple of years. Maybe for 20,000, we could get a base unit and one or two. But they said if you use that as a budget number, and again, it's just your authorization to spend. You don't have to spend it all. If we can get something for 10, great, but if it's 20, but we need to get our foot in the door with that, because once we have it, and we could write it into our rules and regs, any new station coming in would have to have that technology, and then it's on the foot of the builder and not the
town.
ratepayer.
Mhm.
Please.
Would this be the same type of station though throughout? Say you did, one or two places and then 2 years later, you add it on. You're guaranteed that this is going to work throughout.
Correct, yes.
Okay.
Okay. Evelyn?
No, I'm good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Bill. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Mr. Herman and Mr. Howard are up from Community Development now.
Hello, what page? Please.
Mr. Herman has several cost centers under his purview under community development, so I'm going to recommend we start with engineering because it's
It's not in.
the first one within the book. So that begins on page 44 in the budget booklet. And on the J sheets, they begin on J6.
Hi, how are you?
Hello.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Which one? Budget presentation? Want to see it?
No, I'm
Okay. Which one? Yep. Start from the beginning. And now. You good?
You realize where I get all this stuff from, right? It's from when all the planning and zoning board people give us 10 copies of stuff we don't need. I recycle, I rip off the binder, rip off the plastic. I'm not kidding either.
I believe you.
You should probably use the other side of the page, too.
That was too much today. Flows better when you only have to look at it one way, trust me. All right. All set, Mr. Mayfield?
All set? Go for it.
Please.
Good evening, Mayor,
Good
Council.
evening.
So, here is the 2017 budget presentation for the Department of Community Development. As you all were just handed, I have presentation books for you. I also have a slideshow for everybody that's in attendance tonight. So we will get started right away. First thing I'd like to touch on is just our staffing levels. 2016, we had 24 staff in what I call the department. Our department is made up of 5 different cost centers, which you will see as we go. But you can see from 2008 to 2016, for the info I had, where we're at where we're at staff level wise. So, page 4, cost centers. We have code enforcement, construction, engineering, planning and land use, and then the zoning board. Those are the 5 different cost centers which are required by statute for the Department of Community Development. I would love to combine them. I cannot, so what I do is I just offer full summaries of the entire department, okay? So, code enforcement, let's see, Department 196. Our 2016 versus 2017 budget has increased, it's about 27%. The main reason for the increases are 3 employees hit their steps. We have some increase in training for job descriptions, uniforms for additional staff that was added in 2016, decrease in tools and maintenance because we bought the tools, you don't need to buy a new hammer every year. And we're proposing an administrative assistant, number 1, to handle all the extensive paperwork that we do. Now, as far as the staff, I have a summary towards the end of my operating presentation that I want to give to you when we can talk about all the staff that I'm requesting. That way we can do it all at one time, okay? Under the expense sheets, you'll notice there's, very minor changes up and down here and there, nothing really to speak of. under construction on page 6 of the presentation. 2016 versus 2017 budget has an increase of about 52,000, or not quite 6%. 5 employees hit their step increases. Same thing with the tools. We purchased tools last year. We don't need to purchase them again. We've had some minor increases in training and subcodes. We're proposing an administrative assistant 1 for the department. We had an upgrade that was cut down by the manager, and depending on what we do decide ultimately with staff levels, I may have an increase in seasonal costs. Currently, we have seasonals that we utilize to do as much of the paperwork as we possibly can. However, there's some constrictions with that kind of hurt us in the long run. In the budget sheets, once again, our changes up and down, nothing really substantial. So a reduction of $2,000 in miscellaneous tools, increase in training and education for the UCC code changes that came in, so we do need to send some of the staff for updated trainings. And the rest of that capital I'll handle later. Engineering, Department 165, this is on page 7 of your books. This is by far the largest increase. We have $155,000 total change in the budget, and there's a lot of caveats to that. There is some escrow adjustments that we typically include in our line items for engineering. As you know, our engineering staff is able to bill to the escrow accounts. So depending on how many staff I have will depend on how much escrow or how much of the escrow I can actually bill. So there's overtime in that as well, escrow adjustments, and they're all going to be laid out in the actual budget sheets that were handed to you. And Lou, just confirm, they do have the budget sheets that I presented?
Absolutely.
Okay. So we have some minor adjustments in the expenses. We have some some funding for the green team, and we had the manager's account was cut last year, and it's cut again this year. And we had an engineering aid that I thought was cut. We weren't sure. We were going back and forth on that. So right now I believe it's still in. And the deputy director position that we've had multiple times, we've gone back and forth. We've actually funded it in some years and then not hired, and it's gone back and forth. So, if you have any questions on the salary and wage actual budget sheet itself that you have separate from the presentation, we can go over those if you want. Or does everybody basically understand it? You want to go over it? Okay, so everyone's looking at the salary and wage form.
Page 45.
Is that the sheet, Lou? Okay. So you can see the staff that I currently have, myself, and there's 3 staff under me there. The engineering aide is shown yet to be determined at the full salary. The deputy director position is shown at the full salary. I have 2 seasonal interns that I usually hire for the summer, which have been fantastic. They assist us in numerous ways, and it's been a very, very good thing for us. Also, a seasonal file clerk that we currently utilize to do as much of the paperwork that we can. We have overtime adjustments. We do generate quite a bit of overtime because we're trying to just keep everything running. So there's an overtime line item for $30,000. There's a second overtime line item for $15,000. And then we have escrow adjustments. You'll notice my escrow adjustment number 1. Last year we budgeted $80,000, and this year I'm budgeting $120,000. That's the amount that we potentially would generate. In 2016, we actually pulled in, let's see here, $161,000 from my internal staff. Okay, so I've increased that to be a little closer to realistic. I have an escrow adjustment number 2, which is an additional $80,000, and these are the ones that are all caveats. It depends on if I get any of the additional staff members of whether or not these are actually legitimate. So if we hire no staff, then overtime 2 goes away, escrow adjustment 2 goes away, because I won't have the staff to bill them. Okay, so that's very, very dependent on those other two factors. Okay? Any questions on the expenses under engineering? Big things, we have a slight increase in the uniforms, and that's because of the additional staff. If we don't hire the additional staff, we could probably reduce that by, a couple $100. The other increase, the green team was actually thrown into that, so we have an increase for some of the spending, or for some of the funding for them. And we also have a detention basin permit fee from DEP. We've actually been working with DEP now for a number of years, and it looks like we're going to be the guinea pigs. And getting a GP1 permit in order to maintain and repair any of our detention basins in town without having to get any other permits, without having to do wetlands analysis, without having to do individual permits of any kind. So one permit for a fee somewhere between $1,000 and $2,000 will cover all of our permitting requirements for any detention basin. That's good because we have detention basins that are utterly failing from lack of maintenance over the years. We would normally require about $30,000 in engineering permitting requirements just to be able to go back into that basin and repair it. So I've finally been working with the DEP, like I said, for almost 2 years now about this.
Very good.
And they're going to allow a GP1 for general maintenance for the entire town. Normally it's limited to an acre. They're going to allow us for every basin in the town, and we can bring it back to original condition without any additional permits under my license. So if we have 4 feet of silt in the detention basin, I can go in there, hire a contractor, remove 4 feet of silt. As long as I don't lower it beyond what the original design was, I don't need any other permits, which is fantastic. So this is the reason for that expense this year.
Excellent.
Yeah, it's been a long road, that's for sure. So, and that's about it for that. So page 8 of my presentation is the planning and land use budget. And we have a increase in our salaries, about 15% there. We have a decrease in some of our expenses for about a 4% total increase in that department. Some of the reasons, we have a new land use director, Mr. Howard, sitting next to me. We have a part-time land use officer that really saved us last year while we were in some problems with some personnel. We've cut her down to actually 2 days a week, so she's still coming in and handling the problem cases that we have, and still actually helping Mr. Howard here get up to speed on some of the more difficult repeat offenders, we like to call them, which you spent most of your day on today, right? Right, so she's been a tremendous assistance to us, and in a very busy department, I'll say. Some of our master plan update costs have been reduced, and the rest of the expenses are just miscellaneous minor expense changes.
Jim, is that part-time employee plan to stay for a year, 2 years, 3? I mean,
We're planning on her staying through the year, and that'll be it.
okay.
She actually was full-time, part-time, full-time last year. Matt came on in the end of September, and we had her stay full-time through January, and at January 1, we had her drop down to 2 days a week rather than 5 days a week, just to get her, still here, but kind of weaning her off, and she was great. She's fine with that. I think this time, when she's done this time, she's done. She said, when I retire this time, she's great. She's 80 years old, and she runs around that office like better than, it's pretty amazing. So she's been a great help.
That. Aren't they lucky?
Yeah.
Plus all the things she remembers.
Yes.
That's
The problem is,
invaluable.
we're still dealing with cases that she was
Yes.
involved in when she was here. And now we're, figuring out that things weren't addressed, or, people are still doing things they shouldn't be. So, the best is when we go to court right now, and they can actually say, well, actually, I'm the one that wrote the original summons, and we're still here, and you're still doing this wrong. So please levy the fine and cease and desist, basically. So it's been interesting.
Yes, we've been more than patient with some of these people.
Yeah, yes. Kind of losing patience on a lot of them.
Good.
So,
About time.
as Matt spent almost all of his day on today, so, on what, 2 cases? Two problem cases that lasted all day. It's a mess.
Jim, I don't see it on my sheet. How much was the master plan update reduced?
$20,000. It's up, there's still 15,000 in it, for this year, because I was told we were only doing one element. So if there's an opportunity that might change, and we want to increase that, that's. I
Did you
haven't
take into
received any other
consideration all the master plan adjustments they're making for the zoning board changes and all that stuff?
No, nope. Something to consider if we want to do it.
Okay. Didn't a proposal go out, Lou? Didn't a proposal go out?
Yes, I believe McKenna circled something through, yeah, absolutely.
So we have to make sure that that's.
That's covered.
But you said the funds were, I think you said the funds were available for that.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's on the expense report. You'll see that there still is 15,000 in there for the master plan. Some other minor ones, training and education. We actually didn't have to do all new members of the planning board. So, you know, there's $120 savings there on line item 504, things like that. So very minor adjustments. Okay, page 9 is the zoning board of adjustment, and this department really is only seeing changes based on a step increase and some miscellaneous adjustments in expenses. Really nothing of consequence in that one either. Okay, so page 10, this is where I really like to kind of compare everything. From a total department point of view, okay, 2016 versus 2017 budget, we're up 285,000, and that's salaries and expenses. Our expenses have gone down $2,000, and everything else is in salaries. Almost all of that is based on new hires. If you go to the next page, you'll see a comparison, 2016 versus 2017 operating budget, and it gives you the percentages of change, it gives you the change amounts, and on the bottom, you'll see the totals once again. Our total 2016 budget was 1.761 million. 2017 is proposed at 2.047 million. And of that, 268,000 roughly is the new salaries. If you take that part out and just compare today to yesterday, it's actually 1.779 million, or really only $17,000 more this year than it was last year. Okay? On the next page, I've provided you with a 6-year comparison of our operating expenses. The biggest numbers to look at are obviously on the bottom, and that shows how the department has fluctuated over the years. From 2012 at 1.8 million to 1.5 in 2013 to potentially 2.04 in 2017. Most of this is due to staffing. Some of it's due to some pretty large changes in expenses. Some of those changes dealt with managers' accounts, things like that, that we used for consultants when we needed minor things done on a consulting basis. So if you go to section 2 of the budget presentation, which is page 13, you will see we have the total department fees. This is another thing that is very tough to quantify when you're not looking at it as a whole. So what I did is compare 2015 to 2016, just to give you an idea of where we are, okay? You'll see that in 2015, we pulled in 2.26 million in fees. In 2015, in 2016, 2.39. So we actually had an increase there. If you go to the next page of the presentation, you'll see there is a, let's see here, maybe. You'll see there are line items for all the different types of fees. So code enforcement, you'll see violations and fines, rental certificates, landlord registrations, abandoned property registrations. So when you look at those, like rental certificates, for example, we have $38,800. That's 388 new tenants that came in this year. So that's people that had rentals that turned them over, okay? Abandoned properties, unfortunately, we still have that to deal with quite a bit. We have 195 abandoned properties right now, and we took in $96,000 in fees. Unfortunately, we have had to pay some of that out in some of our maintenance, some of the properties that we had to board up and things that were utter problems in neighborhoods. So that's how we get to that. Under construction, you'll notice that's probably one of our big changes there. We're down 182,000 over 2015. The main reason is we didn't have very many big box stores being built. So our fees are based on volume calculations. So when you have a business like a BJ's that has very high ceilings and a very large amount of volume, you have a high building department fee, okay? When you have small houses or even big houses, the fees aren't nearly comparable that you're making up in that large box store, okay? So we're down quite a bit in that department. Under engineering, you'll see we're up actually 243,000. And that's kind of an anomaly, and that's not something that we can count on every year. We have, the biggest change is in our road opening inspection fees, you'll notice. We pulled in almost 173,000 in road opening fees, and that's mainly because New Jersey American decided to replace all their water mains, or a lot of their water mains over in Salem Hill and Candlewood area. So they paid us for all the inspection fees that we had to go inspect. And we actually had to hire a consultant to go out and inspect all those to make sure that our roads were being built properly. The other miscellaneous fees you'll see at the bottom went from 12,700 to 148,000 and change. Same thing, we work to deal with New Jersey American for Aldrich Estates. That's one of the neighborhoods that we're currently reconstructing. And they replaced their water mains in there, and they actually wrote us a check for 144,000 towards the paving effort that I was able to negotiate. And that was, so our contractor would do the work, and they would reimburse us for the surface course of paving. So that's a big change there. Other than that, some minor fluctuations. So at the bottom of that sheet, you'll see there are a couple different lines. Lines to pay attention to. The total intake for the department from 2015 to 2016, you'll see the differences there. You'll also see what our total operating budgets were for those years and what we'll call the balance for the year. So in 2016, we basically had a balance of 630,000. Now, that's just comparing salaries and expenses to the number of permits or the permit revenue that we pulled in. That does not include the healthcare cost or the fringe cost in those employees.
So this is not just on paper, this is actual.
This is actual. Yep. A lot of stuff comes through our office, a whole lot of stuff.
But Jim, projecting out to 2017, these numbers are even going to be a little
They're going to be down.
down.
They're going to be down. We don't have a ton of potential development starting, okay? We have some minor things on Route 9, we have some housing, but like I said before, housing doesn't generate the big numbers as far as the building permit fees, okay? I would anticipate some of the engineering fees being higher again this year because New Jersey American is proposing to do quite a bit more work in town. So we will have some road opening inspection fees and some potentially other fees that will be high again this year. But if there's a delay and they don't do it, then you can't count on that.
And that's important for this council to understand and recognize.
The UCC rolling back permits potentially.
Yes, there's a few different options or a few different pitfalls we have to be aware of this year. The UCC, Uniform Construction Code, part of the DCA, they are proposing to eliminate certain permits and fees, which could potentially impact us.
That hasn't been passed by DCA.
It has not. It has not. It's in the works. Ultimately, it has to be voted upon. I don't know if they will approve that or not. We are proposing, if it were to go through, if this was a full year, which it would not be, I think it wouldn't be until July that it would take effect. If this was a full year, we would potentially lose $171,000. That's the revenue we generated last year from those permits. Now, that doesn't mean everyone's going to do the same number of roofs again or the same number of siding projects, but they're potentially going to eliminate permits for roof sidings, hot water heaters, burglar alarms, smoke alarms, and sheds less than 200 square feet.
Now, Jim, this isn't legislatively, because I spoke to our legislators. You have any thoughts of what the thought process of DCA is to?
No, I don't.
Interesting.
Paul Orlando wasn't able to make it tonight too, or I would have had him try to speak on it a little more, but it's,
I would
they,
say
they change
staffing.
they change their mind on things all the time. And this is just the next thing in line that they're looking to change,
I would think it's a staffing issue.
On their end,
Yeah,
DCA then?
on their end.
potentially. All right, so if you flip to the next page, you'll see, once again, I have a multi-year comparison. And that's just to show you how our revenue has fluctuated. For the most part, it's increased over the years. And you can see the different line items that revenue comes from. So code enforcement fees, construction fees, engineering fees, things of those natures. You know, in 2014 was our banner year at 2.54 million. You know, we were at almost 2.4 million this year. I doubt we're gonna see 2.5 million again for a couple years until some more big box or big commercial ratables come in. And also, just on the bottom, you'll see the amount we've spent on engineering escrow inspections. That's the money that we give out to the consultants, so the consultants do our inspections for us because we don't have the internal staff. So last year, we spent 271,000 on escrow fees that went to the consultants. That's just for inspections. Planning and Zoning Board is separate from that. Those are the review fees, and I have that number as well. Okay, so now I want to get to the staff requests. So to basically summarize everything in the operating budgets, I'm proposing 4 staff. So under section 3 of your PowerPoint presentation, on page 16, you'll see the additional staff requested. So I have 4 additional staff, 2 administrative assistants, 1 engineering aide, number 2, and a deputy director position. For some of you, this is not new. For Mayor and Councilwoman O'Donnell, this is something new to you guys as far as the deputy director position. Pardon?
I paid attention to you the other day.
See?
I knew this was coming.
Oh, yeah. What I do is I show the salary, our total salary costs are 268,000. That's the number I mentioned earlier, the difference between our two numbers potentially. I also showed the benefit costs just to give you a true comparison. You know, a lot of times nobody kind of tells you that, and that's direct from the calculation itself. So those are actual direct costs, okay? So overall, it'd be a $425,000 increase to our budget, of which 268 is for salary. The rest of it would be associated with lieu on your, fringe side of your
Health
budget.
benefits, social security,
Correct.
pension.
Correct. But I figured it was only fair to give you a full view, okay? I try.
Is the administrative assistant the secretary you spoke of?
Yes. So page 17 is one of the 2 administrative assistants. And I'm not going to go through all the numbers and all the reasoning, but from a general workload perspective, when we do our work, whether it's issuing summonses or violation letters or anything like that, the amount of paperwork that goes on is extensive. You have to draft the letter, sign the letter, scan it, save it in our permit program, save it in the block and lot files, mail it out, create a folder. All that stuff happens by the actual code inspectors right now, because we don't have administrative staff to do that work, okay? So when we're talking about processing applications, once again, the initial part is done by the 4 frontline girls that I call them. They are like the backbone of the office. Everything that comes in goes through them. They set up all the initial permit work, okay? And then from there, it goes through our staff, and the staff are the ones that actually do the letters, do the mailing. I really don't have a secretary to mail something out myself. I actually do it. So is my time better generated by mailing out my own letters, or would it be better to have an administrative assistant to then concentrate on other stuff? It's it's one of those things. When I first got here, I told my own staff, too bad, you're writing your own letters, and they had multiple secretaries previously to do that. It's one of those things. Times change, processes change. Using computers changed a lot. We didn't use computers till all that recently in a lot of our office. So it's a big difference. The amount of paperwork that goes on when we process the land use inspections, we have 4 code enforcement officers now that are generating nonstop paperwork, okay? The snow letters, how long will it take us to get the snow letters
Took
out?
us 2 days full-time
With how many staff?
with 4 to 5 staff.
writing tickets, writing letters, mailing out the letters, and doing all the scans and copies.
So Jim, we've had several discussions in the past about becoming more efficient.
Mhm.
And we made some significant
Made
investments.
some significant improvements, too.
So, we have. So, is there room to capitalize on these
When you-
investments we made? So, for example, I remember the days when code enforcement didn't have, I believe, iPads when they were going out, so they would do their work, have to come back. We talked about giving them the technology and the tools that they would be able to do a lot of that work out in the field.
Correct.
That's
And-
not-
And we're doing it.
And we're doing
We
it.
are doing it. Mr. Howard has been excellent at getting them to comply with that and getting our own staff used to it, because it's something new. Nobody likes anything new.
Change is hard. We
So,
get it.
we do have staff now that are using the iPads in the field. We've actually got it to the point where you're taking a picture of the violation with your iPad, you're inputting it right into that permit that ties back to the hard drives here in the township, okay? But once you get back, you still have to then do a mail merge document and print all those letters, sign all those letters, scan them, and mail them. So we've eliminated all the steps where they would just take a picture on their phone, come back, download it, print. That's all done. And we do, when we print out, say, basketball hoop violations, which are, ones that generate multi-hundreds of violations, we actually can do them now by hitting File, Mail Merge, Print, and it'll pull all the data from the spatial data program and actually just generate the auto labels themselves, take the label off, stick it on the envelope, and we're done. So we are doing that. But it's still, when you write 500 tickets in 3 days, there's a lot of secretarial work that can be done.
No, I get it, and believe me. But I'm going to push back a little bit because, there is the technology out there that now allows that to be done out in the field. So,
Right.
for example, summonses. And I think even the chief talked about the new ticket system where now, it's scanned right now, so the tickets will be,
Well, the licenses are, but the actual e-ticket, if that's the program you're talking about,
The e-ticketing.
We don't have that.
but isn't there talks that
There's talks.
they want to go to that program,
They
right?
want to go to that program.
Which there are programs for the same thing for code enforcement, so are we looking into that?
Well, we're doing it. I mean, what we're
We're still
doing
coming
today.
back to, we're still coming back to town hall
Correct,
to do the merging of that.
correct.
I want to know when the system is going to be where that's eliminated and we're doing it right out there in the field.
Well, there's a couple caveats to that, and we've talked about that already.
Right.
What we would need to do is we would need to outfit the vehicles with mobile printing capabilities, okay? And we'd have to probably change our ordinance to allow us to basically, I don't know if we can tape the violation right to the front door, because now we're not mailing it. A lot of times when we send violations, depending on the severity of the violation, they have to be sent by certified mail to guarantee that they get it and guarantee that they've been noticed, okay, so we can go to court with it. That's a,
And you have the compliance period on a lot of them. See,
well, and we have a compliance period,
Right.
right, but,
That comes into play on a lot of them also.
I can't hear. Jeff, I didn't hear.
I'm sorry, where there's the 10-day compliance period also. That
Right.
comes into play, so they could print that letter out from the field, but it's still gotta be mailed out, and then maybe 10 days later or longer, they'll get another ticket. You know what I mean?
Right now, we
Their-
still have to
their
mail
sys-
everything.
Their system is different than PD, just the way that the violations are addressed.
But if we had a printer, couldn't we take a picture of it when we put it on the door? And then that be proof that it was delivered?
we actually do that in certain cases. And the most recent one where we did that, we're actually being taken to court right now for trespassing on the property. I'm not kidding. For a person who was violating and building an enormous riding arena without any permits. And when our construction official posted the property with a stop work order, charges were pressed against that person for trespassing.
And claiming damage to the property too.
While the other person that was with him took pictures of him walking into the facility, because we know that this happens.
That's what we have courts for.
That's what we have courts for.
In a connected matter, do we still take for instance, anything like the basketball hoops? Do we do anything by way of reminder? We used to put it on the website and in
Who-
any, Just telling them it's time to get rid of them.
We sent out multiple reminders on Facebook, on the webpage, on the mass notification systems that
Just
we have.
making sure we still did things
And
like
we
that.
actually had several people from Jim's department, as well as from police department, go through the neighborhoods and go door to door on some of them, putting letters and notices on them.
Well, in my own opinion, we shouldn't allow them to do it at all. It's a
We've-
road, it's for people, it's for cars, it's not for people to play.
We've done friendly reminders where right before compliance time, we will, if we're around, we'll see and we'll knock on doors to try to get some compliance. Most of the time, people just don't remember. Once we do, we do the letters, and those letters give them a compliance period. And we still have people that don't do it. I forget the number, how many last year, how many summonses did we have to write after we issued letters for basketball hoops?
It's over a few dozen, several
Yeah.
dozen.
So we're getting there. And when you go out during the snowstorms now, we are getting much better compliance.
Yes,
We did write actually over 100,
82.
80, we wrote 82 tickets in the last snowstorm
That's
for
not bad.
for non-compliance.
We probably cleared off a couple
And
hundred
we probably
cars.
cleared a couple hundred more where people were home or people were around, and we would go there and, they would see us or the neighbor would see us. We said, hey, do you know whose car this is? Can you go knock on the door, get them to move? Because the reality is, we're just trying to get them off the street so that the plows can come through. And most people, when we
That's the
explain that,
objective, not the-
understand it. I mean, we only really had probably 2 instances this year where we had to have the police called because they were not so friendly. But it's getting a lot better.
Right now, we're going through landlord registration renewals, and at the time of compliance with our first violation, we only had about 60% compliance rate. We've since taken extra steps. We've posted things on Facebook, social media, on the website to try and get further compliance. We're taking extra steps and calling people to try and get them to understand the ramifications of not registering. And right now, as of today, we haven't had to write any tickets. We're getting close, but we have 15% non-compliance right now on 659 registrations and 365 violations. So we are taking the extra steps when we can to make sure we're getting compliance.
as long as we're doing our due diligence so that it's fair.
We're doing quite a bit and
Yeah,
more.
the rest, I'm sure. The rest, let it forward.
Yeah.
Well, it's just noted in the complaints, the less complaints that people are complaining, that, they felt they weren't noticed or given a fair chance. So it's definitely a phenomenal job. I mean,
Yeah,
where we were 5 years ago.
We're really getting into the swing of things now with the staff that we have. They're getting very good at canvassing, at getting compliance, because the goal is compliance. I mean, that's just the benefit for everybody. So we're doing a lot better job than we've done in the past, and, that staff truly helps. So,
There is one thing, Jeff, that was brought to my attention by a resident that was finding it difficult to go to court to, plead and pay her fine based on her work. I never knew this, but there's a way that you could plead by mail,
By affidavit.
by affidavit. A
Correct.
lot of people don't know that, and I don't
Yeah.
think we have anything up on the township website on that. Maybe that might be helpful to some people.
Okay, yeah. I
Very
agree.
appreciative
I don't
that,
think
they were
anything's
very
out there.
appreciative of
Yeah.
that, but they didn't even know that process existed, that you could get an affidavit mailed to you, plead, and not have to appear.
Okay, yeah, I don't think we do publicize that. We can do that, though. We can actually put that out of the, notices out of the court as well.
If we could give instructions to the people that answer the telephone, that would be helpful. If that would be an option for them. If somebody
Right.
calls and says that they can't get off.
Right, I'm sure they probably talked, I'm sure that the court personnel are very familiar with that. But,
Yeah, they are,
yeah,
they are.
we can put that out there.
okay? All right, let's continue. So that was the first administrative officer, administrative assistant, and that was generally before code enforcement and land use. The second one that we are proposing on page 18 of your presentation is for what I'll call construction/engineering. And once again, this is back to the same thing, not having true admins perform the paperwork. When we have field staff that are basically doing all their own letters, mailings, everything like that, the engineers, they're performing all their own billing. So instead of handing the billing over to the admins, which is what used to happen, they now have to do their own billing. That time that they're spent doing that is now time they're not billing or doing other escrow-related work, which is directly related in our numbers as our numbers for review of escrow are down, okay? You know, we process over 7,700 permit applications in these departments alone. We're over 10,000 permits a year total in the department that we handle. You know, almost 23,000 inspections that were done in these two divisions. You know, 96% of them are scheduled inspections, meaning that someone has to call, someone has to take a phone call, someone has to schedule it on the computer program, and then let our guys and our staff know when they have to go. So, you know, when you look at our general day-to-day paperwork that goes on, it's tremendous. You know, we did over 200 resolutions that my staff drafted for return of bonds and escrow, project awards, things of that nature. It's just a lot of paperwork that really should be going on elsewhere rather than here, rather than by the staff that's doing it, okay? Okay, the engineering aid, page 19. This is for a replacement for a retirement that was never backfilled. We had previously funded it. I believe last year the position was actually cut by $20,000, which I advised against. We potentially would have an opportunity to cover a lot of our costs with this person, depending on the type of person that we actually hire. If it's a true field person, then I have no problem covering their time. And when I say covering their time, I mean billing the escrow projects with that, okay? 70% billable would cover their salary and all their fringe benefits, because we bill out at 2 times that employee's salary, okay? So, let's see here. The consultants billed $272,000 for inspection work in 2016. That money, some of that money, would then be utilized by our own staff rather than going out. Now, doesn't mean that all the consultants go away. They're going to have times and we're going to have not enough staff no matter what we do, and we're going to rely on them, or they're not going to have the specific knowledge for that type of construction, okay? So there's a point where the consultants will never go away. From an operational point of view, though, well, actually, let me get to that at the end then. And the last is the deputy director position, and we've discussed this one at length before.
Jim, before we go to that one, let's talk about this one.
Yeah.
Because I'm totally confused.
Okay?
Last year, we approved it, and I thought you brought someone in.
We created a different position. We created a low position, which was not really this position, and that was a person that was in Public Works.
Yep.
So we hired a younger guy, and he's more of a trainee, so we're trying to bring him up to get him up to speed. He's not where this person should be, okay? So this was the position that we really had a retirement for that was never backfilled.
But the
So
goal
we
is
do
to
have
get...
we do have an additional staff member from last year
Okay.
that's in our budget.
Okay.
That's full-time, correct.
How long have you been training?
Pardon?
How long have you been training?
2 months, 3, no, let's see, what's today? 4 months. But this is not something that in 6 months, the person's gonna be up to speed. I mean, I'm talking a brand-new person versus a person with 20 years' experience. That's the difference.
And we
You know?
talked about that last year, about hiring somebody who was semi-retired or whatever, but it was still a significant expense to get somebody at the rates.
Well,
That
last
was
year, we
proposed.
cut it down to a $55,000 a year salary. And for the person that we're looking for, you're not gonna get
And
that.
you-
I don't care what you say. It's not gonna happen. Because we got resumes, and we went through the resumes, and we interviewed people, and nobody fit the bill. So instead of just hiring somebody to hire them, we actually pulled the plug and we said, we're not gonna do it. Because it doesn't make sense. We don't wanna bring in someone just to fill the seat. If I'm gonna bring in somebody to help the department, they're gonna help the department, okay? That's the difference. So we pulled the plug and we didn't do it.
And the trade-off was we brought the person from DPW up.
Right,
who
which
was-
requires a
some
lot
training.
more training and time and effort, and we're basically starting them on very minor, low stuff. This isn't the person that's going to come in right away, and I can send him out in the field tomorrow when he knows what to do.
No,
Okay.
he's gonna
He's going to learn
crawl,
now.
walk, and then run.
And 5 years from now, he's going to be excellent. I can see it already just in how he's learning right now, you know, so. All right, the deputy director, I'm not sure if you guys know, and actually, well, I'm sure you know, 25% of your time at least is spent on management of personnel. That is something I spent almost half of my day on today, which, you know, is a pain. I generate hundreds of hours of overtime a year, as it is. You know, Matt's been here now, not that long, and he's already generating hundreds of hours of overtime, because the level of work that goes on in our office is tremendous, okay? So depending on the person that we could hire, and the person that would, you know, want to come in here, you know, we could partially offset some of their costs by escrow, on reviewing some of the projects, on billing some of those. If we could get someone that has design experience, we could get them to design some of our capital projects, which a lot of our capital projects, if you don't know, are what I call mill and overlays, which essentially is a plan using JS map. It's a lot of cartoon work, it's a lot of notes. It doesn't require extensive survey or design. Those are jobs that we can do. I mean, I can do those in my sleep, I just don't have the time. So if we had someone that could handle some of the other paperwork, some of the other personnel issues, and I could design them, well, that's savings that we're not gonna have spending in the consultants in the capital perspective, okay? So overall, I'm looking for 4 additional staff members. Now, I understand the budgets, I understand how this works. I've been here before. From an operational perspective, okay, I would love to have all 4. I really think I need all 4, and I'll never come to you and tell you that I need 6 things when I'm only trying to get 3. That's not my style, and some of you know that already. From an operational point of view, the admins would be the best bet. The deputy director, while I think we would benefit, I think we would continue to improve the efficiencies in the department, and we would really, you know, make a lot of headway. I'm just gonna keep working overtime, and that's all. The engineering aide, that position does not operationally affect my department today. The consultants do the work now, the consultants can do the work tomorrow, okay? So that doesn't really matter to me. It's revenue that we're losing, that we're potentially losing, we'll say, but operationally, it's neither here nor there for me, okay? The admin staff to help with the paperwork that goes on, and Matt can attest to this, would be a tremendous asset and improvement for the department. So when you're eventually considering your budgets and you're thinking of everything going forward, you know, I think my bet would be on the admins. And that and that's coming from a guy who said I've wanted the deputy for 3 years now. I would rather see the admins based on seeing how the operation works and how it would improve. Right now, we have 2 admins that are out on their 6-month seasonal leave. It's almost
Very different.
It's almost grinding to a halt, because it's the amount of paperwork that they did do for us is now not there. So,
You know, Jim, it's tough, and we know how hard you and your staff work. But the downturn in the economy hasn't changed. And I know we've been saying for the last 6 years that I'm up here, you know, we need to be more efficient and more, you know, effective, and we've made some significant investments in the tools to get you there, and probably you're never going to get fully there. But I have to tell you, I think it's going to come to a time, and I mean this sincerely, that we may not just be able to provide the service as quick or as good as maybe people have accustomed to. And, you know, listen, people are taxed out. We're taxed out, you know, and for that reason, you know, the expectation is going to have to be less. It's going to be difficult for people to accept that. The same thing when you tell me that you sit here and you tell me that, you know, it's just going to be on overtime. I'm going to tell you it may not be on overtime, because we may make that decision that we're not going to fund the overtime, and you're just going to do it the next day or the next week or whatever. That's really, I think, at the point we're at. So, you know, it's something that we need to tell the public, and that's the message we got to start, I think, relaying, unless others have other opinions. I don't know, you know, and that's the exercise that we're going to go through with this budget. But I think the expectation now is going to be less, because I just think the mayor and councilwoman, correct me if I'm wrong, you had a meeting with some
Yes.
citizens,
Yes.
and not being there and knowing these people, I'm sure you got an earful.
Yes.
People are
Yes.
taxed out, right?
Absolutely.
So I think we're all on the same page. So although I appreciate everything you're telling me, and I know the hard and difficult challenges you have in your department, one of the most, probably the second most important department in this town, we're going to have to make some tough decisions. And, you know, you've been here and you've heard it for the last few years, you know, about a deputy and these other aides, and we haven't been able to do it, and, you know, it'll be interesting to see what we'll be able to do this year, but
I haven't even gotten to capital yet. Wait till you see that.
you know, for public edification, I just want people to understand, we hear your concerns, and
I understand.
it's a balance.
Yep.
Have
agree.
you been paying attention? We're telling everybody, people are taxed out. There's no money, no more money in the well. Can't go back to the well because there's no money there. And people are leaving Howell Township because of it, and that breaks my heart. We used to be a very affordable place to live.
And listen, we're very conservative on the council. What are we, 17 cents on the dollar? 17%,
Not even.
you know? So,
That's the toughest part.
yeah,
You get blamed for everything, and you're one of the smallest portions.
This is true.
comes with the territory.
All right, you ready for capital?
Sure.
Let's do it. All right, so, page 23 of your presentation, you'll see we have quite a bit of capital requests. A couple different vehicles, which has been split out into code enforcement and construction, and then engineering has about $7.3 million worth of capital requests. And quite frankly, that was light, and you'll see why as I get to it. Okay, so vehicles, we've been trying to basically get on a vehicle replacement program of buying one vehicle every year, which has worked out so far. Unfortunately, as you go to that page and the next page, we're requesting 2 vehicles this year. We had additional staff members that we hired, and we actually pulled some vehicles out of the boneyard. And unfortunately, we lost 2 vehicles this year to rot, where they went away for maintenance and they never came back. They were immediately taken out of service. If you look at page 26, you'll see some of the pictures that the mechanics had sent me, where the frame rails had rotted to the point where they weren't sure how they were still on the truck. So there was 2 of them that we were not anticipating losing this year that we did. Those were in September and October, I believe. And they were some of the 04 Blazers. Unfortunately, back in 04, I think we bought a large chunk of vehicles, and now all those vehicles are coming due about the same time, okay? So we have, let's see here. We have 13 vehicles total in our fleet, in my department, I should say. Of those, most of those are out all day, every day. There are 2 vehicles that are shared by 6 people total, and that was something that, 4 years ago, everybody had their own vehicle, and I squashed that. That didn't need to happen anymore. So we've actually gotten rid of vehicles and not replaced them. But myself and Matt and Paul Orlando, we share one of the vehicles, and 3 engineering staff share the other vehicles. Normally, we rely on people being out sick. So when 2 engineers need to go out at the same time, we can hopefully snag somebody else's vehicle. That's just the way it works, and we've gotten pretty good at that. I'm not proposing to change that. These are just going to be straight replacements for the vehicles that were lost and we need to now retire.
You have any vehicles coming online this year from last year?
We got them all.
We have everything?
Everything that I have, we bought and is already been accepted. So we have nothing waiting. So I have two vehicles, 2 04 Blazers that are next in line to be replaced. And those would, let's hope that they don't go in the meantime. Okay.
Are you saying that these 2 vehicles are still being utilized today?
No, the 2 vehicles
Okay.
that we lost are gone. They were actually stripped of their decals
Okay.
and are being auctioned off, I believe, as scrap.
Okay.
Right?
How many vehicles do you have altogether?
13.
13, you said? That's,
I have 13 vehicles, 11 of them are used daily by inspectors. And those are, our building inspectors, our code enforcement inspectors. They go out every day, all day. They can't share a vehicle. We
there
have-
are only 8 vehicles listed on this vehicle list, so that's inaccurate also. And
On
it
which
says,
vehicle list?
Given to us by Public Works, when they were in.
8 new requests?
No,
or-
no, 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 no. They're supposed to be, all the vehicles are either in good condition or poor condition
Okay,
that Howell Township owns.
okay,
And there are only 8 attributed to Community Development Department. And there's nothing under separate issues like engineering or that,
do they give you vehicle numbers?
yes.
Well, we have the deputy chief mechanic is here, and so is the supervisor from DPW. They were going to be going after community development to answer some of those detailed questions as to
Okay.
why that might be. There might be reasons that we're not aware of.
Maybe they're just different numbering, maybe they're still listed in the old numbering system where some of the 44s and the 33 numbers, rather than the 22s. I've been going, and as we get new vehicles, they're all being numbered 22s under community development.
That's what's listed under Community Development are 22s.
Well, I definitely have 13 of them, I can tell you that. All right,
Well, they'll get up and explain that.
all right. I actually have a separate list here that I can show you or make copies of for you if you want later. Or,
Trying to figure it all out to the best advantage of,
I know we currently have 4 vehicles on the poor condition list, on the bottom of that list from DPW.
and you're still using those there?
And we're still using those, and 2 of them are gonna be, I'm scheduling to replace 2 of them.
To replace 2 of those,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep. So, all right.
thank you.
All right, capital paving. Page 27 of your presentation. And for those of you that are new, when I first got here, we did an inventory of the road system, and we have about 550 what we call lane miles of road. So essentially, down and back, we'll say. So in order to have a 30-year life, which is probably 10 years beyond what would be recommended, we have to pave about 18.33 lane miles of road per year, okay? So in 2014 and 2015, we did almost 27 and 24 lane miles respectively. Last year, we reduced our capital budget request for paving because of obviously financial considerations. And we also had 3 major reconstruction projects that were multi-years worth of funding that we put into. Those were different. Those, if you remember, were the Sunset Drive, Blake Drive drainage project down in Ramtown, which is now complete. Larrabee Boulevard, which was an absolute disaster, that's now all complete. And the reconstruction of the S-curves for all the accidents we had on Kent Road. So those 3 major reconstruction projects are complete. When you look at 2016 as a whole, we did about 19.1 lane miles of road. So we're right there. We're still over our goal for what we needed to do. 2.5 of those were actually done by the water company. And that was from the paving they did in Candlewood, Salem Hill. Okay, so we're taking credit for those because we still are getting the roads paved. We had to do the curb and sidewalk portions of those, so we came in there after they did the water mains, repaired the curbs and aprons that needed to be repaired that haven't been done since the 60s in that neighborhood, and then they did the paving work. They're actually scheduled to start next Monday again on Salem Hill and Newberry to repave those roads, the portions that they already did. So we're gonna get more lane miles out of them this year, okay? So if you look at the last 3 years, we did 70.2 lane miles. So if you think about it, in 2017, if we did nothing, if we approved no capital and did no paving, we would average out to about 17.5 lane miles per year over the last 4 years. So we're still pretty close on what I say we need to hit as a goal, okay? But, if you go to the next page, New Jersey American Water is proposing 3 major projects in Howell in 2017/2018. Number 1 is the continuation of the Salem Hill water main replacement. So they're telling me they're going to replace about another 10,000 feet of mains this year in that neighborhood. If they do, and they repave them for us, that's another 3.7 miles of road they'll do, okay? Project number 2 is what they call segment 4 of their water main transmission main project. That's to loop various mains to provide redundancy to our residents in our neighborhoods right actually behind us over here. So they're going to run a new water main on Maxim Southern Road from Talcott south to Lanes Mill, and they're going to run up Lanes Mill to Castle Court. And they're also going to run up Locust Avenue to, I forget the first intersection there. And what that's going to do is it's going to loop all their water mains together, okay? That's going to provide redundancy. If there was say a water main break on Locust Avenue, everybody back on Sylvan and all those roads back there, they wouldn't have water. Now they can shut off the valves and, and they're getting some federal dollars for this too, I
I
believe.
understand that. They've been talking about that goal for the last 30 years.
Looks like it's moving forward. I actually have plans now, so that's another 3.38 lane miles. So what I'm doing is I'm essentially taking credit for the water company paving, because they're gonna pave our roads curb to curb for us, okay? And lastly would be Project 3, which they call Segment 3 of their transmission main project. They essentially need to connect their plant on Squonkam Yellowbrook Road, which is behind the Board of Ed building that we own. They're gonna connect from there down to Lakewood, okay? They're gonna run a 36-inch main, and that main is going to be run on hopefully an easement through the Public Works yard, out onto Old Tavern, down Preventorium to Maxim Southern, to Oak Glen, to 547, and then down into Lakewood. So if they do that, we're gonna get almost 8 lane miles of road paved or repaved under that program by the water company, okay? So.
And we have nothing to do with that. That's not our decision. We can't, that's completely out of our hands. That's the BPU, right?
Correct.
Just making sure, because
Now.
I get questions about that all the time.
Okay. So the potential for road paving by New Jersey Americans, about 15 lane miles of road, okay? So if they do that, if all that comes to fruition, we're in really good shape, and we're not gonna do any paving on our own. We're not gonna pay for any paving on our own, okay? But what I have to do, let's see here, is I have to chase them and do what we did this year. I do the driveways, the intersection improvements, the drainage work, anything that's beyond just the mill and overlay, okay? So on sheet 29, what I call the 2017 driveway to intersection improvements, that's essentially to chase the water company down and do the work that includes the driveway aprons, the intersections, the drainage. If I need to replace an old corrugated metal pipe that's rusted out, do something like that. And that request is $750,000. That's gonna hopefully cover all the work needed to make those roads exactly like they were if I were doing the paving myself. Okay?
Hopefully. Hopefully.
Better. It better for that. But that's why I'm not requesting $2 million to do the paving too. It's only $750. All right? So that's number one. Number two is on sheet 30, Salem Hill curb and aprons. And once again, that's to follow the water company in the Salem Hill Candlewood area, okay? And we did this last year where our curb and sidewalk contractor got in there and did all the aprons that needed to be done, all the handicap ramps at the corners that needed to be done to be brought into compliance. And we're requesting $510,000 for that. And keep in mind, when I make these requests, I make them in order of importance from my point of view, okay? So those two, I think, are the most important. Number 3 on sheet 32 is the Lake Louise Dam replacement. We've actually been working on this now for quite a while. We passed a resolution in 2016 agreeing to the project with Monmouth County. Our portion of the total contract is about $1 million. This is to replace the Lake Louise Dam and the county bridge, okay? We are getting credits for a couple things, the dredge machine, a culvert replacement that was done, and some of the hydraulic study that was already done. So our portion that we're looking to budget for is $750,000, okay? Our actual cost, I believe, is roughly 6 and change, but I am anticipating some inflation and change orders that will probably occur.
Jim, just give a little overview of the dam condition and whatever agency regulates it, the problems we're having with that.
So the
people know.
DEP, Bureau of Dam Safety, regulates that dam. And it is a Class 2 high hazard dam. And they have studies, and every 2 years we're required to do an inspection. And the inspection most recently came back that it was in poor condition, required further study. Upon doing that further study, it was recommended that the entire structure be replaced because it's to that point. We actually don't know when it was constructed. We don't have any records of it, but it's time. The county, when I first brought it to their attention, agreed that their wooden bridge structure is in the same condition and needs to be replaced as well. So now would be the time to do it, especially since the DEP is essentially mandating us to do it. so we really don't have a whole lot of choice. We did pass a resolution authorizing a shared service agreement with Monmouth County to do this. We did a similar concept with the Echo Lake reconstruction a few years ago when we gave a portion of the fee and the county took the lead and they did the actual replacement, but we did have to pay our fair share of that. So this would be the exact same thing. And you can see some of the pictures on the next page. Okay, on page 34, the curb and apron program. This is almost identical to what I'm requesting for the water main project in Salem Hill. So this is where we go into our older neighborhoods and we replace driveway aprons and/or handicap ramps at the corners or otherwise severely deteriorating curb. In 2016, we replaced over 11,000 feet of curb and 40,000 square feet of sidewalks under this program. This is one of the most highly successful programs that we have because I'd have to say probably 60 to 70% of the complaints that we get are related to the concrete, are related to the aprons and driveway aprons. So what this allows us to do is go into those neighborhoods that are not slated for paving, that we're not going to fully reconstruct, and essentially repair these aprons for these residents and not get them off our back, but improve their quality of life and also get them off our back from paving for a few years. Okay? Sheet 35 is what I'll call the pavement patch program. This is a program that we keep pushing off because of dollars. This is a job where you would come across a really bad stretch of road on an otherwise good road, and you would want to mill out, say, one lane by 100 feet and patch that area and move on to the next one. That patch will get us anywhere from 5 to 10 years worth of life before I actually have to go pave the road.
And that's why it should be up farther, higher in importance, because
That's why I think the other ones, in my eyes, are as important as that, you know, and that's another big one.
But this saves a lot of money.
It
This
saves
is-
us a ton of money. And I caught more, you know what, about doing this in the Glen Arden neighborhood than was worth my time and effort, but it saved that main line from requiring full repaving for many years. You know, because most of the road, if you think of Glen Arden's a lot newer than, say, Parkway Pines and Ramtown, right? So how can I justify doing anything in Glen Arden when Parkway Pines hasn't been touched since the 50s, right? Well, but you have really, really bad stretches of road that maybe only are, you know, the size of the dais that you need to fix. This fixes them.
That section on Casino Drive where it comes out the Piskin, it's nothing but,
Aren't
and
we,
in the winter, if we have a bad winter,
aren't we doing that? Aren't we going to do that under the municipal aid program? Isn't that what we put in for?
is it that last section? I
The
hope
piece there
so.
right by West Farms?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah, that's what we put in for municipal aid grant.
okay, good.
Or, I'm sorry, CDBG grant, CDBG. Yeah.
It is, it's horrible.
And actually, for instance, some of West Farms Road right now, I don't know if you've been on West Farms by, say, Stewart, Charles, and Midland, that neighborhood in there, is a minefield, right? But we potentially have the Pinnacle development coming in, okay? We have potentially a large co-op project right by Turpac Road coming in. So all those projects are gonna have to pay their fair share and do their portion of road widening or bringing utilities in. So I don't wanna go in there and fully repave West Farms Road when 2 years from now, by the time they get to it, they're gonna rip it up and redo it themselves, and they're gonna pay for it.
But Jim, what's the problem with West Farms Road? Because that road was just paved maybe 5 years ago.
That section was, I believe, 2007. I would have to say it gets a high volume of traffic. I would
does.
maybe look at the mix that was done at that time. There's been some conversations that the mix wasn't exactly the right mix of asphalt that was put down. And that was the contractor's problem. But it's, you know, there's a variety of reasoning. But something like that, again, if I could take care of a stretch the size of the dais and leave the rest, that's gonna get us to the point where the contractor's gonna take it over from us and do it themselves.
Well, again, that's one of those old roads that was never built, doesn't have a base of any kind. It was, basically a lane between farms, from one to the next.
Yeah.
Or an elk trail.
Most-
Some of them are a couple of 100 years old.
Most of our out roads are that, you
Yeah.
know, most of them don't have base,
Right.
That was a problem I ran into last year on Bennett Road when I had to redo Bennett Road. There was nothing underneath.
I can
You
tell
know it.
you, I can remember when that was all dirt, so
So,
it hasn't been that many years.
Yeah.
It's
well,
only been 30 years since it was first paved,
it wasn't in good condition by any means.
and it's never really been a defined road. Some sections of it barely, I'd say it's been within the last 20 years that some sections of Bennett Road, if traffic was coming in both directions, one guy would have to pull off the road to let the other guy through.
Yeah.
And there was a trucking firm there. Go figure why they ever let that happen. I
All
just
right.
know that people lost their front yards to those trucks.
I'm sure. Okay, next.
What's that other program we talked about that thin layer of asphalt that,
Microsurfacing?
yeah.
I'm not proposing any of that. Those are really Band-Aids. They're basically you'd have to fill in the cracks. And these are for roads that have a decent surface course still, but have a lot of cracking. What you do is you come in, you would crack seal everything first, and then you would come in and put what they call a microsurface layer on, like a slurry seal or a chip seal or something like that. And that essentially kind of fills everything up and coats over top of it. Does it extend the life of the road? Yes, I would say it does. Is it anywhere near what paving would be? No. You can't do it in neighborhoods because it's really meant for outroads. When you do it in neighborhoods, it's a very rough surface and a very rough finish. So for instance, if you were out there skateboarding, roller skating, riding a bike, you would think you're on rumble strips the entire time. So I definitely do not recommend that in any kind of neighborhood, but I wouldn't necessarily rule it out for some outroads. But we haven't had those type of outroads that need that treatment. Most of our outroads need full reconstruction, and that's what we've been doing. We've been knocking off quite a few recently. So there's definitely a use for that. I just haven't found the right one yet. All right, sheet 37. Here's a project we've discussed at length before, the dredging of Aldrich Lake. We are to the point now where we have submitted to DEP and are expecting our permits. We are also waiting for them to get back to us on a beneficial use determination, and this is to dredge Aldrich Lake only. We've done all the soil testing, we've done all the hydraulic surveys, we've done all the work to get the permit, and we're just waiting for the word from DEP now. So we're requesting $3.335 million, which shouldn't be a surprise. We've discussed that number before. This is one of those things where, if you push it off, it's only going to get worse, and it's only going to be more expensive. There is a potential, depending on what the DEP rules on their beneficial use determination, that we might be able to use this material over again. This will also depend on the type of contractor that gets the job. When we did the soil test, they actually came back really well, which was kind of shocking, and most of that material is sand. So that sand can typically be blended with leaves, and you can almost generate a topsoil or a fill material. So there's a potential that we could, bring this material somewhere and stockpile it and then blend it with leaves from our leaf compost facility, and then we could potentially sell that topsoil. Whether or not we would do that internally with DPW or whether or not we would have the contractor do it, or we could even go out for a contract separately. We do have contractors, I believe, that work for DPW that do some of our stump grinding and things of that nature in the public works yard, and they're responsible to do it all and sell it, at their own responsibility or at their own cost. This could be a similar program, and that would actually save us money. So, if that's the case, that 3.335 would go down. I really won't know that until we bid it, okay? I'm hoping that we could save quite a large sum of money on this if we can get a beneficial reuse out of it.
That's
If
the major difference, what
If the
happens when you
DEP
do
allows
the
it,
soil.
then that's a home run. So, and then obviously just getting the lake dredged, so we need to do that. That's why of the 7 million, this is half of the entire capital budget right here in this one project. All right?
And let's just put it out there for public, because, people say that we're spending 3.35 million. We don't bond until we know what the actual number is, so.
Correct.
This is just a request. Once we know what the numbers are, then the bond will reflect that number.
Just the authorization to spend. It doesn't,
Correct.
we don't actually go out and bond, until Mr. Palazzo there says, we need money, and at that point, I have the jobs lined up and we're ready to go. So, yeah, we're not bonding this until we're ready. As with all the rest of the capital projects, really. They're all the same way. And there's just a few pictures of what the lake looks like right now, which is more of a mud flat rather than a lake. And keep in mind, that was when we did lower it, for our weed control. In the winter, we always lower them at the recommendation of the Lake Restoration and Wildlife Committee, and that's when we lowered it 3 feet. That's what it
But
looks
you
like.
lowered too much. It's not supposed to look like that.
It's because it's full of silt. Okay, on to the next one, page 39, Bear Swamp Pond Dam Replacement. So here's a dam that we inherited when we acquired the Van Schoik property. This dam was basically nothing more than an old farmer's dam back in the 40s. I believe at the time they were allowed to build dams like this actually for irrigation purposes.
Right.
And were actually even, I think, given funding to do a lot of these back in that day. So unfortunately for us now, it's our responsibility. It came with Bear Swamp, and we did a regular inspection of it in 2015, noted deficiencies. We sent it off to DEP, and they required us to do a hydraulic study, or a hydraulic and hydrologic study, which essentially is an H&H you'll hear it referred to as a lot of times, and determine that the spillway is insufficient. And we can confirm that because during Hurricane Irene, the spillway was overtopped by about a foot, and that's actually exactly what the design documents came up with, and that it eroded quite substantially and had to be backfilled on an emergency basis. So it does confirm exactly what would happen, and we need to replace it. It is basically mandated by DEP. So we're looking at potentially a $750,000 replacement cost. That includes engineering and the design work. So we have to have plans submitted to DEP by December of 2017. It will not take that long, so I budgeted for it this year. However, if this is one of those items that we're looking to maybe push, if you wanted to push construction funding to 2018 instead of 2017, here's an opportunity for us to do that. However, if you just said go and we had this money available and I released a consultant to do the dam replacement project, I would say within 6 months, we'd probably be pretty close to ready, and we could go out to construction. Now, like I said, this is an opportunity. If you wanted to push it and just fund the design now, we could fund the design now and wait till 2018 to fund construction. Okay? That's up to you in our overall scheme of what we're going to do, bonding, bans, all that stuff. All right? And on the next page, you'll see what the dam looks like, which the outfall structure is pretty funny. Okay, so next thing that I have here is the West Farms Road Sidewalk Project. This was a 2015, I'm sorry, CDBG grant application. And the way HUD works these days is very slowly. So we didn't receive award notice until September of 2016, almost 15 months after we put the application in. And we did receive $142,000 from CDBG. So our total project cost we're estimating to be $210,000, of which $175 is construction, $35 is design and inspection cost. Take off $142,000 for the grant, we're left with a $68,000 balance. That's what we need to fund. Now, I believe, Mr. Palazzo, if you can confirm, we originally put in 210, based on the way the numbers played out, that we have to fund up front, and then we would get the reimbursement, if that's correct? So that's what we'd be looking to do. And if you remember, this is the project that would install sidewalk on the north side of West Farms Road from the Home Depot, where the Home Depot ends, okay, out to Oak Hill Trailer Park, Countryside, and Green Acres Park. So overall, it serves about 580 units that we'd really be connecting to Route 9. Based on the pictures you can see on the second page, on page 42, there is a well-defined path where these people walk almost daily. And this is walking to the bus, walking to the convenience store, walking to the Dunkin' Donuts, things of that nature. And there have been accidents out here. Mr. Mayfield, do you remember the last time there was a pedestrian accident out there? It's been a few years now, I believe, right?
It has been a little while, but I know there have been, through the years, several over in that area, actually.
So this was a documented need that, we identified back when we were looking for CDBG funding. And I really actually need to get going on this right away because we have to have it constructed by September of this year. So I'm looking to hopefully release the consultants, within the next week or two to get prices.
We didn't approve that funding yet? We didn't approve,
We
when we
didn't-
got the, I thought we did too.
We didn't
I
get,
could've
we didn't
sworn we
approve the
did.
funding, we approved the project, we approved the application to CDBG, but we never approved the funding because we didn't even get the notice that we got the grant until September of last year. So we only got the notice
Okay.
5 months ago, so we
That's
had to
probably
wait,
what we remember.
yeah. So that's where we're at with that. And that, my friends, is it. See, wasn't that bad. Now, in the back of your binders,
thought
I
you
gave
said
you
that
some
was it.
additional information that you can
I
have.
thought you said that was it.
That's it for the presentation. I gave you some additional information, just gives you what we've spent on consultants over the last couple of years. I gave you an analysis I did last year for in-house versus consultant spending relative to me having the proper staff to design these projects in-house or do some of the escrow work in-house. I'm not going to go through it. I don't need to go through it. It's for your reading pleasure at your leisure. If you have any questions, you can always let me know. I also provided you all the roads that we paved in the last 3 years, and that's more so when people complain to you that as a councilman or as a mayor that you haven't paved a road in their neighborhood ever since they've lived there, and now you have the lists. So you can say, well, actually, that's not correct. I had a gentleman swear to me today I've never paved a road in his neighborhood, and I paved 13 in the last 2 years. So, it's good information for you to have.
Well, some people, maybe the neighborhood is just their house. Not
He really only knew his street, and that was about it.
unlike what we have always been in Howell. Everybody in Howell is my neighbor.
And the
Thank
last,
you, this is very helpful.
the last thing I gave you is just an overall analysis of all the basically road capital projects we've done over the last number of years. So once again, you can kind of look at what we've done and what our neighborhoods were and all that stuff. So,
Excellent
do
presentation.
you have any questions?
Where are we gonna get the money?
We're gonna print it. It goes on a money tree out front. I planted one.
Excellent presentation.
It's a tough one. Thank you.
My mother used to, every once in a while, run clotheslines through her kitchen and hang money up because my father had a bad habit of leaving money in his pocket, and she'd watch it. And I'd come home from school and there'd be all this money. Printing money again, huh, Mom?
Do we have any questions for Mr. Herman?
Information overload, sorry.
No, I have to go home now and read all the back of this. That'll be
Well,
another hour.
that's why I gave
Thank
it to you.
No questions.
No, I'm fine. I've asked my questions.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too. I'd like to take a 5-minute break, please, if we can. Thank you. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes, we are, Mayor. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is George Snyder, Public Works Supervisor. With me tonight is Joe Layton, Assistant Chief Mechanic for Vehicle Maintenance Department. I understand you have a few questions for
Nice
us.
to meet
We
you.
did prepare some information about vehicle maintenance, a little overview of the department, and cost over the last 5 years. So we're ready to answer any questions.
If I may, Jeff,
Yes?
do you know what page it's on in the book?
No, this
This
is not
is
a
different.
budget.
Oh,
This is
not in
just,
the, oh, okay.
This is a separate request,
Forgive
just
me.
to talk about the vehicle maintenance and the fleet and the training
Okay.
Overall.
Did you want to give a brief overview while
Sure.
we review the
George,
document?
can you read-
Why don't
can you-
explain- yeah, why don't you
Yeah.
explain what the different forms are?
or read this.
Okay.
This was a good statement.
Thank you, thank you. All right, on the left side of your folder is an overview of the Vehicle Maintenance Department and fleet maintenance. Their mission statement is to maintain the fleet in a timely manner while remaining physically responsible. Fleet maintenance maintains approximately 206 on-road vehicles, and then on top of that, there's about another 100 off-road vehicles, including loaders, mowers, and small equipment. And you see the list there, I'm not going to go through that. Vehicle maintenance uses a fleet maintenance program and driver inspection reports to be proactive, anticipate service and repairs. Drivers are trained in pre-trip and post-trip inspections and are instructed to report deficiencies. All vehicles utilize a fob that reports fuel usage and mileage to the fleet maintenance program. The program tracks fuel economy, maintenance schedules, and maintenance costs. We found out that oil sampling is not required due to the rarity of engine failures. We have some engines sampled, but again, it's rare that an engine fails, so we did not use that. Service intervals are based on manufacturer schedules, and parts and procedures are regularly researched and improvements made where necessary. So they will go out and they'll look at certain like brake pads and compare and make sure we're using the best brake pads for the department, because just getting low-cost brake pads isn't efficient because labor is involved and labor becomes costly. So we try to use the best parts possible. Benchmark for vehicle replacement is 10 years of service or 100,000 miles. Actually, we stretch that out to about 12 years. Vehicle maintenance rates all vehicles, and this information assists in the budget process. Age, mile, and condition factor into the rating. And I just wanted to note that poorly rated vehicles have more downtime. And they only break down when you're using them. When you're not using them, they're always fine. So, and downtime does seem to happen when there's a snowstorm or an emergency. Training in the division is ongoing. Maintenance and diagnostic software is updated in order to provide timely service. The division employees and certifications are as follows. Chief Mechanic Frank Sabone, he's a certified Public Works Manager. He also was ASC certified, and he would require recertification to maintain that. Assistant Chief Mechanic Joe Layton, he is ASC certified. Mechanic Welder Gary Idell, his ASC certification has expired, so he'd have to retest for that. Same thing with Mechanic Welder Mark Kidd, but he is retiring in June. Mechanic Welder Mike Ciano is ASC certified. Mechanic Welder Dan Haynes is ASC certified. And Mechanic Welder Matt Robinson is ASC certified. Majority of the work is handled in-house. Outsourced repairs include major auto body repairs and transmission rebuilds. And the reason those two repairs are outsourced is because regulations make it cost prohibitive to paint vehicles. You need a paint booth and comply with DEP regulations. And transmission rebuild is by parts in bulk, therefore providing service at a lower cost and a warranty. And the Vehicle Maintenance Division shall strive to serve the township by continued training, incorporating efficient procedures, remaining proactive, and budgeting responsibly. On the right-hand side of the folder is an analysis of other municipalities' operating expenses in vehicle maintenance. And we broke out salaries and wages, the operating expenses, total, differential, and the road miles that these municipalities maintain, and the population of each municipality. And this is for 2016. And as you can see, going by size and budget, Howell is about the second largest town in the area that we used for this comparison, and we fall in second with the cost. The next handout is the budget report for over 5 years for vehicle maintenance, breaking down each line item. The next report is an equipment cost history. This is for each vehicle. And as you can see, when we started adding purchase price into the program, that's in there, that's included in there. Then there's labor cost, parts cost, and the total cost. That's for the life of the vehicle. And the last handout are the vehicles that have been retired since we started tracking the vehicles with the software. And the cost at the time of retirement for each vehicle. The cost of repairs and labor.
This is what we need to do here.
Yeah.
Now, I believe we provided council with 3 lists at the budget hearing of vehicles, and each list...
We have 2 lists.
2? Okay.
2, we have good and poor.
You didn't have fair? Okay.
no, I don't know if I didn't get a pair. Did you get three?
I don't remember.
Two. We all got two.
Okay, we could provide, we could also provide you with that. We have a copy here, we'll make copies and make sure we get them to you.
Oh, good, thank you. The cost history is an important one because as my own personal experience, and as if I've said many times from the dais and from the floor, sometimes you get just like anything, just like my KitchenAid mixer. It's 40 years old and still going. But I know other people who, 2 years and it's gone because they didn't get a good one. Same thing with vehicles.
Right.
You get a good one, you keep it properly maintained, and it goes on, and there's quite a few lemons out there. You get
Yes.
fewer lemons, and you keep the ones that have been around for a long time and doing a good job.
Absolutely. Quality counts. Now, something I would like to point out, older vehicles, especially older than 10 years old, parts start becoming obsolete. They might only have 50, 70,000 miles on it, but, for example, PCMs, the powertrain control module becomes obsolete, and we can't get them, we can't have them rebuilt, we can't drive the vehicle. Sometimes, we're scouring junkyards for parts sometimes for the older vehicles.
You have to.
And also, if we look at the equipment cost history on page, well, it should be page 5. Under leaf vacuums, it starts with asset number 122. You'll see, looking at all the leaf vacuums, the labor costs and parts costs for most of them are in the $20,000 to $35,000 range. Those are high maintenance items. That's per unit. That's over $100,000 just to maintain the leaf vacuums.
Well,
So George, does that indicate that maybe we better find a better way to
yeah,
not use leaf vacuums?
vacuums don't work.
You're right, and we've been discussing that in our staff meetings. Picking the leaves up with King's Claws is more effective. It's faster. There's less maintenance on the equipment. The only problem is it doesn't break the leaves down. You know, the leaf vacuums mulch the leaves as it goes into the container, so it breaks it down around 25%. We can move more leaves quicker, and it does a nicer job. But as far as maintaining the equipment,
Thank you.
it's expensive. I think a combination of both systems works best.
So we purchased some new leaf vacs, right, over the past 2-3 years, I
Yes.
believe? Do we have, so are we sufficient now with the new ones we have, or we still need?
We're not requesting one for the 2017 budget. I believe in my 5-year capital plan, I have one in there just to stay on track in the replacement program and keep it on the radar. We could revisit that as time comes.
But just based on this, I'm counting 9. How many do we actually have in inventory of leaf vacs?
9 there, right?
9?
Correct? Okay.
And 9 is sufficient for the size of this town? Like we're using all 9, or you rotate them?
Not
So-
everybody puts the leaves out.
We
Yeah.
use about, sometimes 9 are out, but most of the time there's always 1 or 2 down.
Okay.
So if possible, we'll have 9 out, but most of the time 1 or 2 are down. And I'm looking not until, next year for a leaf vacuum and skip a year.
Yeah. There's some things on this, oh, sorry, it's not on. You really don't need it with me, though. Somebody else's will pick mine up. On the poor list down toward the bottom of the first page, there's a 2011 Grandmaster Toro, and it says 0, and there's something under it that doesn't say what it is, that's 0, and down at the bottom, an 18-ton trailer, 0. There's quite a few things on this page, I'd say about a dozen, that have 0 under miles. Does that mean it's not used? Does that mean it's counted others than miles, like the lawnmower? Yeah, that's a trailer.
Yeah, I see the Toro, it's a Sand Pro. That's a piece of equipment that grades ball fields. That doesn't have an hour meter on it or,
So that's why you have 0. I'm just wondering
Yes.
why things have 0.
yep, yes.
But the Grandmaster 2011 Toro, that's a lawn mower thing, big lawn mower, right? And does that have an hour meter on it, or that wouldn't have miles?
Is that asset number 304?
Yes.
Yes, that has 1,003 hours on it.
It's a 211 and it's in poor condition?
That's a good question. We'll have to revisit that. You know what might have happened? It might have, that vehicle might have been replaced, and that category on, we use a user-defined tab on the asset program, and that might not have been changed.
You must not have, so I don't have it on my list, 304.
Okay.
I mean, some things I can figure out why they say 0, like the hot mix transporter, but, and some of the things, like there's an equipment, under equipment vehicle, a loader that has 0, then a loader that has 7,840, whatever that number means. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right, I apologize for that. I should be more, 102 and 103.
Okay.
7,852 hours probably.
Right, but the one above it, 103, says 0. Does that mean it's no good, it's sitting there, needs work, it's so, does it need to be replaced?
That machine only gets used once a year, and they just use that machine to plow the parking lot, actually. It doesn't,
Snowplow?
yes, but they put the pusher on it, and they
I
use
see.
the pusher for the parking lots, for around Town Hall, Library, Police Station. As far as the year,
It's a
the hours, I
specialty,
don't know.
right? Is that what you're saying? That's why, it's special for a special job.
Well, it's old, and we don't like to use it out on the road
Okay.
because it's rotted.
Well,
It's-
To answer your question about having 0 for a value there, it could be two reasons. The hour meter does not work anymore, but it should have the last hour on it. But our program only recognizes an increase in hours or mileage in order to allow a vehicle to get gas. Sometimes we have to override that. So once the hour meter doesn't work anymore, we have to override the system. The other thing is, the operator could have put the incorrect value in. And, not all programs are perfect. I think it works pretty well, but
Well,
that could be operator error.
just asking for an explanation so I understand
Yes,
what it means.
Absolutely.
Because we're all wondering what kind of condition our equipment's in, and every year we keep purchasing more and more and more. Are we adding to a fleet, or are we just replacing something that needs to be replaced? And if you're not using the first one,
Might
I'm
replace
not
it.
going to replace it, I just need something to go on.
Absolutely, doing the due diligence.
Right.
Well, I think it's pretty clear that many of the vehicles have been retired and taken out based on this multi-page report with like over 100 that have been taken out of service or replaced. And again, how many pieces of equipment are you responsible for, Joe, for the vehicle maintenance part?
That's around 326 off-road and on-road.
326 on-road and off-road with the 60s. Okay.
Well, the one, the list that we didn't have before that shows what's been taken out of service, that will be helpful now. That explains some of the things that, but still, in this, I looked quickly over this fare list, and we still only have a total of 3 vehicles assigned to senior services. And they have more than 3 vehicles.
Senior?
It's the senior department.
Right, because if you look at the good, you should have 3 or 4 vehicles on the good.
1.
But there's one list missed, there's one list missed, so they might be on the fair, which we don't.
No, that's what he just handed us the fare.
Oh, and you just looked? There was none on there?
No. There were 2, I think, on there. 2 on there and 1 on the good. Sorry.
We have 3 on the poor.
This is the fare. There are 2 on the fare. On the, am I missing a page?
There's only 2.
So,
2 on the fare and 1 on the good. Nothing on the poor.
if we're referring to our equipment cost history list on the second to the last page.
Which list is
Oh, no,
that?
sorry, equipment cost history.
Cost history?
Yeah,
Okay.
last page. Seniors are 6601 to 6612.
Okay.
And there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 vehicles there.
Okay, good. That, they're accounted for there.
Now again, maybe the Ford Fusion didn't make it to the good list.
It is on the good list.
What is that?
On my list, yeah, my list.
Okay,
It probably didn't,
brand new.
because it's brand new.
Yeah.
It probably, when those original lists were put into place, it probably wasn't even in town yet.
Okay. Now, are these buses diesel? I'm assuming since they're buses?
Yes, they are.
It's retired.
Are there any more questions?
Oh, I have lots more. I'm sorry. Are you gonna leave it all to me? You had some questions too.
A lot of my questions are being answered in this report.
Yeah, some of mine are too, but I have to keep up with all of it. But-
Just curious, one question, with the Board of Ed, do we do any shared service with their fleet? Who maintains their fleet, do we know? Board of Education?
They have their own mechanics.
They have their own mechanics?
We do share the garbage truck. They purchased the garbage truck.
Yeah, that I know, I'm talking about as far as mechanic work. we're not doing any, we don't help them, they don't help us. If you fall short, we don't grab any of their mechanics? No?
They fall short. If we fall short, I go back out on the floor. That's how it works. So we kind of,
Is that something, a shared service that we could look into, Jeff, you think? Do we know if they're having any issues, or we having any issues where,
I've talked with the superintendent and the business administrator about various things that we can do together, and that's really never come up as one, so I have to assume that they're okay with the way their operation is running, but I've never had that direct conversation, but I've had a lot of other ones with them
Yeah.
now.
okay.
So I can't really tell the mileage on the buses that, because this is just cost, and the mileage is on, so 3 of them we can account, we see the miles for. And I would hope any of these that are diesel, the trucks, and if, I'll hit it again.
I have the mileage, if you need the mileage on the 3 buses.
I'm wondering, on the 3, because she wants another bus,
Right.
and I don't think it's necessary.
6605 is a 2002 E450. Has 161,838 miles on it. Both 6611 and 6612 are 07s, and they have about 124,125 each.
They're barely broken in for a diesel.
It's, right, sometimes it's not the actual, the engine failure or transmission failure, it's the rot. It's the body rot from the salt, from the calcium. It's the body mounts. There are no body mounts. There's nothing left underneath. They're not made well. And carrying passengers, I mean, safety is always the issue.
Can't we find something that's made well? And as far as the trucks go, they should be washed every time they go out, no matter what. I know it's a problem, and I hope you get your washing system complete very soon, so that helps, it helps tremendously. to
Absolutely.
Just wash it.
But it's too late right now with the trucks that we have from the fleet. They all look great from the outside. They look beautiful, nice,
do.
red, shiny.
Yeah, they
But
do.
You look underneath and you look around, it's scary. Scary with the amount of rust and rot and the wiring,
Well-
everything's just eaten away.
There's a process I know of coating, not regular old-fashioned undercoat that holds the moisture, but a kind of goopy stuff to help protect it. Do you have that done every time you buy new vehicles?
They are.
I'm sorry, if I can't describe it
undercoat.
better, to me it's just,
I don't know the material, but they're undercoated.
Undercoating?
it's not regular undercoating, because regular undercoating holds the moisture and keeps it from, but there's a special material that, I know they put on
If you
trucks.
can find it, please let us know, because anything that we've ever used so far, the salt has really eaten it away. It has, and I know there's even some kind of electronic way to put on the,
Do you have any answer for that? Yeah, you.
Yeah, when you open up to the public, I don't think it's proper now.
Okay. Now I'm done then.
Any
I
other
just-
questions?
Go ahead.
Are you done?
Unless I think of something. I've gotten a lot of answers.
No, I think we got a lot of answers. I know we made some capital investments with some systems to, I don't know what they're called, but fleet management, right? We did that a couple of years ago,
Yes.
and
Yep.
we did some
New software and laptops to diagnose the vehicle.
GPS and all that stuff, so I don't recall anything in your budget that, again, the trend has been always to be more effective and more efficient, and we want to give the tools for that. I mean, over the years, we've heard that our fleet was so bad, and we purchased these new vehicles to hope to help reduce the cost of maintenance. So I just saw that last report. It seems like we're on track doing that. I assume a lot of the newer vehicles have warranties that, when something goes wrong, we're sending them out to the,
Absolutely.
to the manufacturer.
Warranties, they're getting longer and longer, and when we purchase equipment, we try to get extended warranty, that way we have a fixed cost over a certain period of time, and we know what our costs are gonna be.
And you just mentioned something about parts, so I'm assuming we're looking at OEM parts or, you know, the best parts available out there, right?
Yes, sir.
So, this was, you know, a good report to have that I don't think prior we had, and answers a lot of good questions.
Okay, great.
Do you have any questions? Are we good?
I just thought of something else about the transmissions. It says transmission rebuilders buy parts in bulk. What do you mean by that? Therefore providing a lower cost service with warranty.
We do have Class A mechanics, right? Yes. Class A mechanics rebuild transmissions. We do have them on staff. But the cost of the parts for us to purchase them, because we buy once every couple months, is not efficient.
Oh, so that's explaining why you send them out.
Exactly, yes. A transmission rebuilder will build hundreds of transmissions. He can buy the parts in bulk.
Not only that, but I know from I've seen lots of the insides of transmissions over the years. You have to take it apart to see what parts it needs. And you have to have this big bulky thing sitting over there and these parts there. You have to order parts. It would end up being a hindrance.
Yes, time consuming.
And it's a benefit, you're right, if you can get the parts cheaper, definitely. Okay. I just wanted to know what that statement,
Okay.
that statement meant exactly what I know. Thank you.
So if there are no further questions, we will end this portion, and we will open up to the general population.
Thank you, Mayor and Council.
Thank you very much.
Stay, please.
Good job. Thanks, Joe. Thank you, Joe.
George, I think you've been requested to stay.
Oh, stay, okay.
No. Questions being asked. Yeah, well, but maybe he can tell you about the Koopy stuff.
Okay. Don Smith, 54 Vanderveer Road. I think, what was your question again, Pauline?
It was about the material other than regular undercoating.
There are rust-proofing compounds used by that are government spec'd, because so many of their vehicles, and JCP&L uses them too. They're a soft composition and considered self-healing, because they drive their vehicles through salt water a lot of times, and that's why they had to use it.
Are you familiar with such things, George?
Not to that capacity, but we'll look into it.
Do you have, how would they look into it?
Oh.
Call Freehold Ford?
Online it should be pretty easy to find, because you're just looking for the military spec for corrosion-resistant coatings.
That's what I was thinking of, corrosion resistant. Sorry.
You know, see, just to address your concerns, my wife's problem is she lives in a home with a 33-year certified Ford technician, master tech, and a son that's a certified diesel tech, even into the electronic control systems. So when she comes up with this stuff, we start hitting her with, well, why is it bad? The miles, a diesel is good, in the private sector. It's not uncommon to see them with 500,000 miles on them. I mean, nobody gets rid of them for 1,000 miles or 2,000 miles. And in today's gasoline engines, with the new oil technology that you have, engine tolerances, 200,000 miles is the norm for them. but I understand that the majority of your problems with vehicles is rust. So if there was a way to combat that, I think it would be a great help. As I say, I am familiar with some of those coatings. Beltel actually went so far as to have one developed for themselves, just for themselves. And I forget the name of that composition, but I have some of that at home. I used on my own vehicles, both 55 Chevys, and they're not rotted out. So it must have some value. Anyway, one of the questions I did have, you covered, you were talking about your mechanics, and they were ASME certified. How many of them are certified in diesel? Two. And as far as the welding, what certification did they carry? Whose certification? I was U.S. government certified because I had to go to for a special test, and I was certified for up through boiler.
Certification is given by an insurance company. We looked into it, and our insurance company doesn't require certification, therefore there's no certification
Yeah.
given. I mean,
Okay.
you go on the outside and go and get certified military, but that wouldn't assist us with our in-house certification.
Yeah, I was working on military contracts there for a while, so we had to be certified for those contracts. Okay, I was just curious. Okay. That answered my question. I hope it helps yours. Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Paul Dorado, 27 Firestone Drive. Just want to go on record with the basketball courts. They send out a ton of reminders. They do. I have to fight with people in my development, and they still don't listen. I hate saying this because I'm a resident, but there's not that many here. Up the price of the tickets. I mean, because like it is a problem with the snow plowing. I live in the Tuscana development, and the snow plows can't get by there, and it's a problem.
That's touching.
You know, so my wife made me take mine down.
Good.
Anyway, I think my questions are more for this side of the chamber here. On a couple of these, well, not on every one, but on a majority of them, there's specialized expenses. I can kind of understand it for the police, but on some of the other departments, how come those aren't stated out? It's just under one category.
Oh, you'd have to, if you could tell me which department you're looking at, I could probably pull up
I'm
what some
going
of
to
them
go
are.
off the first page here that I have. I don't want to talk on the microphone right now. Specialized expenses for administrative and executive. It's $52,500 from last year, and it's the same particular figure for 2017. What defines a specialized expense?
I had to pull up the spreadsheet myself, but I'm pretty sure the bulk of that is coming out of the drug testing and an attendance program that we use for the administration of the town.
Would that qualify for the other departments that it's in? I mean, it's also under the police, maybe the police is something different because of what they do.
Yeah, each department would have certain specialized expenses depending on exactly which department you're talking about, because what that basically covers are expenses that are specific to that department. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's just, it's you know, from like accounting perspective, like if you were to do something on your balance sheet and have a miscellaneous expense, you'd actually have to define that miscellaneous expense.
Right, sure.
Miscellaneous to me is a little bit different than specialized, but kind of the same particular thing.
Right.
So I know like one under the specialized expenses, it wouldn't be broken down.
And they are. They are in our more drilled down budget sheets.
Right.
Like, as you can see, most of us have a pretty thick book that we're working off as
Right.
well as the spreadsheets.
Right,
In our books under the specialized expenses, it does break it down what they're for.
okay.
That's why if you tell me the department, I can look them up if you'd like me to,
No,
no problem.
I was just curious of like really what it is, because if
Yeah,
I
that's what it
put
is.
this through to my account for my business,
Sure.
I'd be answering questions till,
Understood. And again, there's just so much paper
Yeah.
to generate, to be honest with you. This is more of a working document,
Right.
just to refer to as we go through this process. But we do all have the copies of the drilled down, more detailed documents as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And they could be made available to the public, that's no
Sure.
problem.
Sure, I would say that, I mean, it's like the manager said, they're specialized expenses to that department's functions that don't fit in the classification of any of the other budgetary line items listed there. Like, for example, I know in public services, there's one, specialized expenses, and that's where half of our, I guess, better way of saying it, our dog catcher contract is booked in there. So, I guess to have a catch-all line item, we just consider it specialized expenses, and the governing body obviously gets budgetary documents where the departments are required to break down all the items that are listed in their specialized expense line items.
Right, right. I mean, as I had time and I listened to everything, I went through some of the things that I was looking, and I mean, I
Sure.
don't want to take everybody's time up here because you've probably gone over these a couple different times. But one thing that like really stood out to me is the information technology budget.
Okay.
I mean, you have, the salary and wages, which obviously is self-explanatory. How do you have $134,000 in software maintenance? Equipment maintenance is another category, specialized expenses, telecommunications maintenance. I mean, wouldn't that almost be less expensive to outsource that maintenance? I mean, how much software maintenance could you really need?
Well, and maybe maybe software maintenance isn't the best defining term. It's a lot of the, and I'm just trying to pull it up here. A lot of the items that are listed within our software maintenance are annual contracts on a lot of the proprietary software. Licenses, firewalls, all the annual contracts that we have, and the IT department did provide us a breakdown that itemized everything that went into those
It just kind of
those
sticks out
amounts.
just from this standpoint, because stop and think, I mean, you have $166,000 worth of salaries, but then you have $134,000 in software maintenance. The number doesn't,
Well, a lot of those are maintenance contracts, so that doesn't really, if you're, I get the sense you're trying to equate the salaries, that's almost falls into a salary also, but it doesn't.
no,
You follow
no,
what I
but I'm trying to determine like what it's really used for. So if we're paying $160,000.
Licenses and maintenance contracts.
$134,000 on top of that, in general, it's a big figure.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, but technology, every
Oh, yeah.
piece of the town's running on it, you know?
Yeah,
I believe it was also an upgrade in Microsoft. Weren't we gonna go to Microsoft, the
There
new
is.
version of
That-
Microsoft?
That's part of it. But actually, the maintenance contracts are the lion's share of those.
Yeah, I mean, it's all of our, to our website, to our firewalls, to, Cablevision, everything that's basically, that runs through the township, we run it through IT's budget, so that is encompassing of, I believe, the entire, operational department except for PD, I
Other
think.
than PD,
Specific that are, software, and hardware maintenance are specific, communications are specifically budgeted in their budget for specific needs that are for the police department as well.
so it's like the plan as we upgrade technologies to help, I mean, I don't like saying this, but I mean, it's a reality of it just because the way you're looking at the numbers. The plan to upgrade technology, is that gonna help reduce some of the labor, some of the workforce that we have here?
No, actually, it's not gonna replace any of the workforce at all.
Right.
Because actually, we've had an open position that's never been filled for about 7 years in the IT department, and we've done things creatively internally to overcome some of the shortcomings that we have between the police department and the township as a whole. We had them start doing a little cross-training, cross-working. We have also a seasonal worker assisting with some of it in the police department end. That's
When are we
also
gonna make
overlapping into the
decisions
township
about
now as
what
well.
we're gonna-
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well,
You know,
that's,
the technology is really turning almost like, it's a utility these days, you know?
Yeah.
It's just one of those things you gotta do. you
well,
know?
absolutely, and I'm, because my next question I'm getting into, I mean, like, I know obviously healthcare, I mean, you're $5 million in healthcare, you're $6.5 million in debt, you're $11.5 million in, you're collecting $27 million. We didn't even talk about anything else. We got problems, so I mean, like, if we can't do anything with health insurance, I mean, how do you do?
And that's with healthcare this year, that didn't increase.
I know, but it's still,
Oh, it's,
Compared to the
I'm not
private
saying it's
sector,
small,
yeah,
I'm
I
not
don't
saying
wanna have that
I'm
argument.
not saying it's small dollars, I'm just
No.
saying that this was actually a good year coming in
I mean,
2017 for us.
the council here was looking at the salaries for the 4 positions. I mean, you saw the salary, and then you saw the benefits on top of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's excruciating.
It almost
It
doubles the
really
cost.
is.
It doubles the cost of an entry-level position, just about, or has the potential to, depending who you hire.
Right, right. So from that standpoint, I mean, obviously, we're trying to decrease, I mean, you're trying to do everything you do. I guess the next question would be, what about, I mean, I know you've done this over the years, what about restructuring the debt? I mean, how are we going to really combat this? I mean, can we do that? I mean, we have to do something here, because obviously we can't, I mean, we're limited on revenues. We can't raise taxes. We don't, there's only so many variables that we can have coming in. How do we do that?
I mean, historically, we did restructure a bond that we had issued in 2005 that was refinanced in 2013. And I believe that with the state, we have to show a savings of at least 1% on the debt in order for us to restructure existing debt. We'd have to show that it's cost effective to do it, because then we would be basically reissuing a new bond and all the bonding costs that go along with that, bond counsel's opinion, rating. We would have to, as before, be able to justify a certain amount of savings in order to have a cost effective to do it.
Okay, so this 6 and 8, however much was towards the principal, that qualifies for that particular 1%? Is that all under that?
I believe it's the total cost over the entire bond, but with the principal and interest.
And what kind of interest rates are we, because obviously they've...
I mean, the last bond we issued was in 2005, and we were able to get that based on our rating. I believe it was 2% across all of the QSIPs. We were recently, at the beginning of the year, upgraded by Moody's to, I believe it was single A3. I mean, rates are holding. I know the borrowing rates are going up a little bit, as so are some of the interest rates as far as investing our idle money. So we're still in a good spot, but we definitely, for the state, anytime we would even think of pursuing a refinancing, we would have to prove that there's a certain amount of savings there.
Okay, that's how that works. I guess the only thing you can do is raise the rent here. I mean, I was trying to think of the 2 hours I was here, I mean, but, okay. That's all my questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No problem.
If there's no one else that would like to come up to the podium, I would entertain a motion to close the meeting.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Roll
Roll
call. Mrs. O'Donnell?
Yes.
Mrs. Smith?
Yes?
Mr. Nacastro?
Yes.
Mayor Berger?
Yes.